This is pretty cool. I wish I could have stood up here one day. Just saying. I think we never made it past doubles. Welcome again. We talked on the opening evening, on the Sunday awards evening, and one of our favorite evenings is the evening of the final round. So again, a hearty welcome to Wichita State and CETA for the final round of the CETA National Debate Tournament. One quick announcement: we have lost and found. We have a camera and some flash drives. If you've lost those things, please see us over in the tab room. Before introducing the debaters, I would like to introduce the judges. These are judges who are representative of each of the regions in our country. Representing the University of Vermont is Rashad Evans. Please. West Georgia University, Sarah Lundeen. The University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Christian Beto. James Madison University, Will Scott. Puget Sound, James Stevenson. Representing CUNY, Whitney Brown. Representing Emporia State University, Latoya Green. University of Texas, San Antonio, Christina Baez. Christiana. Last but not least, representing Augustana, Roger Copenhagen. As you all know, getting to the final round of CETA is no easy feat. There are 8 prelim debates, many elim rounds with lots of judges and fantastic competition. Tonight, representing you all, the people at the People's National Debate Championship on the affirmative from the University of Kansas, Jaleesa Hampton and Q Robinson. On the negative, from Towson, Kevin Whitley, I was like blanket for a moment, and Troy Thomas. I'm done. Have fun and good luck.
Yeah, kind of. Okay. So before I start, I'm just going to say a few things. Forgive me if I'm bad at it, but it's kind of cool. I'm really excited about being a freshman and being able to do this. So we'll see if I screw up so much. I'm sure the others will be more beautiful. But I would like to first thank the KU alum, in particular, Robert and Sharon Premise, who helped fund my scholarship to attend the University of Kansas. My mom, my little brother Ezra, my older brother Deontay, and my older sister Ashley, who are my siblings, so they're pretty important. And my mom, who is constantly supporting me and helping me, messaging me at the tournament to remind me to take my medication, even though often I forget. I'm on antibiotics, and I've forgotten 3 times this tournament, so let's hope I don't get even more sick. Somebody in particular who means a lot to me is Emma Pabst. She was my debate partner in high school. She means the world to me. Probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. She's an amazing person. she's the person who will never constantly have debate success, but who truly just believes in everything that we do here. Emma, yeah, my high school partner. Sean Kennedy, I don't know if all you know, but Sean Kennedy was my lab leader in high school. He was my lab leader, and I was struggling to figure out where I was going to go to school, and he was like, well, you know, we've got the University of Kansas, how about you apply, we'll see what we can do for you. And I freaked out because I was like, I'm not going to be able to afford college, and I'm not going to be able to do this. And he helped me out for months to get here, so that's just something I'm largely appreciative to. You also ask him, I tweak out about 9 times a tournament and tell him we have nothing to say, and that's never true, but he's always capable of calming me down and just being there. Next is Harris, Scott Harris. The speech the other day said a lot about who he is and what he does, but I can genuinely say, regardless of any, you know, Harris is only for the students. I've never met a coach who I believe cares about the students more than they care about themselves. Harris is humbling. He'll give up whatever he has. You know, it's jacked on his back. I told him yesterday I broke my backpack. He was, you know, immediate to supply that. I'm clumsy. And then, of course, Jaleesa. A lot of people look up to Jaleesa for reasons that are very important. Jaleesa has had, you know, 9 years in the activity of not doing amazing, but being amazing. And I think that that's something that not a lot of people can say, that they can look in themselves and say, for the last, you know, I haven't done well. I haven't been rude. I haven't, you know, just continued to be the person that she is, constantly having to debate with partner after partner who were abusive to her in ways that we don't even want to talk about, the ways that debate can force you into relationships that you don't want to be in. I can say that I'm so thankful that I've had the opportunity to finish her final leg with her and just provide what I can to that situation. And I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very sad she's a senior because I have no idea what the hell I'm going to do next year. And I'm almost done. One last person in particular is Kane. Kane is one of my best friends. I'm thankful that we got to debate him last debate, but I think Kane is somebody who often goes a lot without recognition. He's one of the smartest people I know in the activity. He's a great person. He's a great friend of me, and he always has been. He coached me a bit in high school, ironically. And I've just never known somebody so selfless. He'll give anything up. He's never been mean to me, win or lose. He's never, you know, he's never like, I'm going to, you know, whatever for the next debate. He's constantly just Kane. He's going to beat you because he's smart. And oftentimes he will because he's brilliant and one of the most brilliant people I know. And then just a few names of people who have made this year easy for me, a few other freshmen that I have to send respect out to. Naima, Charles and Gio, they've been my best friends, some of my best friends since high school. I love them, and seeing them at tournaments is always so helpful. Charles stalked some of our debates today to make sure I knew it was going on another round. He's amazing, and you know, Gio isn't here, but he's amazing as well. And he was messaging me last night trying to help me prep for rounds that he doesn't even know what's going to happen, but that's Gio. He'll make a joke if he can't help you with work. And Brooke, promise I'm almost done. Brooke, I love Brooke to death. She's also constantly supportive, whether she's doing well or not at a tournament. She'll make sure you know that you're doing well and looking well, and you should be feeling well. She has no problem snapping for all of the amazing people in debate. Preston and Hank Stolte coached me in high school and still help me today because, again, I tweak out all the time. That's what I have to say, but thank you, everybody. Black women are the hardest working women in America and still get no respect. No woman has done so much for this country and sees so little. Really, black women built this country. It all started right here between the blueberry, black, chocolate cream, honey, brown, pecan, French vanilla legs. It wasn't the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, the Stars and Stripes that gave birth to America. It was rather the black vagina that laid the golden egg, or rather the shadowed slave. That's right. During America's formative years, the most valuable property to be produced, a property the entire economy was based on, was the property of slaves. $12 billion worth. One can't begin to fathom today's dollars. Where did it all come from? Whose vaginas passes $12 billion? Whose vaginas were capitalized, colonized, immortalized to give birth to America, whose vaginas have been appropriated, syndicated, deprecated, but never ever vindicated in the process of building this country. The black vagina, the only vagina that's less valuable when it was loved and protected than it was when it was open, occupied, and taken at will. And the law made it that way. Black women couldn't be raped as a matter of law during the old days. The law said that rape was something that only happened to white vaginas, not with black ones. Politics must begin from the position of the black matrix of the black woman who's located in a structural position of rape. This conception does not formulate rape as an incident which happens when our moral is vulnerable to, but rather the very condition for being a black woman extension, the world in which those slaves build. Bullerson says no slave, no world. We say no black woman, no slave, and no world. That's James 13. Given communal conceptual wellness created in the classroom's habitat of boundary defining democracy, Afro-Lism, Americans, two determinist phenomena, democracy, boundary defining freedom through fight through captivity, philosophy of orders, reimagining freedom through flight, the reproductivity points to the black matrix of cyphers of all material subjugation of birth and capital, racial capital overshadows racial gender differences, masculine by suffering of black female trauma, the black male frame, death, around mass imprisonment, stop and frozen, violence, debase, and the public racial rape is complicated, miracle through all truths, blood trails are traceable back to the black nature, subjugated, extended reach into areas, faceless to colonization, segmentations of black who's matrices, having public prayer of the black nature, to deniability, and state intimate violence where the church meet Western democracy manufactured, the black matrix that's disposable to libidinal, linguistic, and material economies, but those times of degradation and alienation were the old days. We can rest assured now, right? We finally got that respect that Aretha's been talking about all these years, or did we? As a black woman receive the respect she deserves even today? Are we respected when those who enter our bodies least against our will, at least likely to be arrested, least likely to be prosecuted, least likely to be convicted? Are we respected when black trans women have 50% of homicide rate, but convictions for those murders is less than 5%? Is the black woman respected when no one seems to care what happens to our own bodies and our own communities? Is black woman respected when everyone knows the names of Michael Brown, John Crawford, Eric Garner, but no one knows the names of Mia Henderson, Tiffany Edwards, and Brittany Sturgis? Is a black woman respected when our own community readily embraces those accused of rape, chastises women for not having the good sense God gave her, having no business being up there with that man at 2 a.m, or being foolish not to know what her brother's true intentions were? Is it respected when politicians trip over themselves trying to be tough on black women? By some miracle, they are convicted, only receive 1/5 the sentence of those who rape white women by embracing the punitive policies of self and shut down these women now that our labor isn't needed anymore. And all black women are defined as prostitutes with experiences black sex workers has been rendered invisible in politics respectability. That's Blair and 10. The black prostitutes and responsible for battles over black women's sexuality in African American society serve to call the arms of middle class black women. All black women are defined as prostitution. Equation black women with prostitution generate defensive activity on behalf of respectable black women. Black prostitution is literally silent public shadows of public discourse silenceless about prostitution, virtues, trials, black women in science, central to politics and respectability, and anti-blackness manifests of politics respectability uniquely through ignoring the experiences of black trans women. This violence is civil society. American finds anti-blackness in misfortune year. That's true 14. Tiffany Edwards, C.C. Doe, Mia Henderson, Bernita Colstreeters all a recent sampling of the young black trans women who faced death at astronomical rates because of the violence and homicide, because the anti-blackness itself, racism, sexism, misogyny, colorism, classism, economic violence, for some misogyny specific to sex work and misogyny, trans misogyny in general. There are so many intersecting impressions that one is regularly flips with the violence of black trans women discuss the anti-blackness self, which alludes to ways which is social acceptable hatred of black women and generally applies for black trans women, even if the anti-blackness of our last be the final act of black youth. Women are misgendered and immediately associated with crime. Black trans women experience has not been included in the one I see politic of illicit eroticism is essential to challenging trans misogynure. Jana Mock reminds us we need a space for the erotic, messy struggle complicated in our politics. We need a space to discuss the unspoken, uncomfortable, dark truths. We need a space to challenge the exceptionalism of the polices, the boundaries of gender and black womanhood. You should orient your ballot to confront the politics respectability that perpetuates the libidinal economy, the anti-black consumption that devalues the black female body through violent imagery, objectification, cultural shaming that manifests itself through policy regulation of sex work. You should reject their framing of our bodies and endorse methodological hypersexual economy to change the economies of representation. That's Young and 10. African American women's sexuality is inherently formed of objectification by their bodies, necessity of sexual economy, and slavery, and black women's historical effort to claim their bodies to find their own womanhood has not been easy. Attempts to achieve sexual autonomy in the face of widespread discourse and black sexual deviancy, black women defining sexual autonomy has not been easy. The politics respectability historically discouraged black women for creating a framework of sexual subjectivity outside of heteronormative domestic bourgeoisie, family relations, racial fraud, race, sexuality, gender, in favor of static heterosexual narrative. The politics respectability proposed black women have cultural dissemblance, cultural masking, silence, secrecy, disavow sexuality. Black women's lives they used to win cultural traditions frame sexual deviance as dangerous, marginalized women who deviate from politics respectability as a symbol of participating in non-norm sexualities, including queer, contractual public sexuality, restrictive, repressive, dangerous sex with black female sexuality have gone under-emphasized. We should interrogate the sexual desires, fantasies, fetishes, expressions of black sexual subjects, as well as their presumed white male force or consumer, and the figure of the prostitute is socialized, racialized, deviant body does not conform to the norms of acceptable behavior, which makes her monstrous, dangerous, other, lets us on and eight. The contagious prostitute and deviant black body bodies that engage in prostitution, the space of prostitution, racialized food deployment, and monstrous body, racialized, other, sick or disabled, plus arrested, norm, and a conflict with clean and proper body. The strength of the norm and standard is so powerful. The prostitute provokes the fascination, horse, she changes, recrosses the subject object binary apartments, more women in certain framings and certain public spaces are always already transgressive, dangerous, and in danger, and the policing of prostitution perpetuates racialized violence. It's Megan Talk 92. In the U.S., prostitutes has degeneracy. Black immigrant migrant prostitutes are subjected to systematic violent harassment. The police use of control for prostitutes to cover policing minority immigrant working class communities in both male and female defining zones of the city. Sexually deviant police attempt to penetrate and subdue the black body through the prostitution law. The space is criminalized. Prostitutes who report black pay the most vicious frontal law in the U.S. women economy make up 55% of those sentenced. The police are fighting sure that black women pay the heaviest price for the criminalization of sex with the horror stigma, racial divide, stigmatizing, challenging the lives of women of color as well as progression and racism in the sex industry in the U.S. and after 400 years, this is the respect we've been waiting for? I don't think so. So here's an idea. The next time we hear rebelting, R-E-S-B-E-C-T, let's reach for it, own it, proclaim it as our national anthem for black women, for black vaginas, because we know that respect only goes out to those who demand it and refuse to live without it. So from home, Watts, Memphis, Detroit, Kingston, Jerusalem, let our voice demand and our command be heard. Respect this woman. It is in the battle cry for respect. The black woman represents a pivot towards illicit eroticism, self-autonomy, which is key to challenge paternalistic representation, black female body, and disrupt erotic economies of white desire. Self-modification is path methodology. Recognizing pleasure and black female sex work is supposed to shouting survival, but also an act of self-expressive erotic desire. Young and 10. Black women are finding new ways to play erotic embodiment, putting sexuality, working off informal illicit economies of sex, nothing, their erotic satiation, transnational racial economies, the sexual desire, the sexual labor, the medical pornography, third world, working lives and strategies, the historical representation of black bodies as a site for bastard rape, forbidden sexual sex, fantasies, practices, house set black subjects, symbolically, strategically within touring a sex, illicit eroticism offers a framework to understand how black subjects labor in the sexual economy, illicit eroticism offers black women who are marginalized in formal like ways to survive across our encompassing wide range of informal intimate labors and illicit erotic workers use and employ their sexual talents, capital, knowledge, report, and sexual service on the margins of the economy, increasingly focused on modification and industry more than survival skills. Eroticism choose the logic of respectability, dissemblance, normativity. Black women who transgress multiple cultural, social boundaries as they mobilize their outlaw racialized sexuality forward. They use their demand of the hypermythic vehicle to produce themselves a dependency, selective appropriation, commodification, both strategic and creative with its engagement with capitalism. Thus, Jalisa and I affirm the prostitute. We control uniqueness. Black women's bodies are always hyper-visible and status quo in their sexuality is rendered illicit. Only harnessing sexual visibility allows for black men to cultivate agency over their own desire and self-expression. That's young and 10. Participating in the continuum sex labor, black women strategic community of illicit erotic economy grow with their survival economy well-being, motivated or what is considered relatively high flexible, high income working, a sense of recognition for their erotic embodiment and sexual talents. The kind of sexual visibility could reflect desire of young black women to harness the sexual subjective power. Eroticism made popular by black actresses, entertainers, sexual outlaws like Pam Grier, Lil Kim, or Josephine Baker.
Yep. What's a vagina?
Well, our argument is that civil society is defined. We have a descriptive claim of what civil society defines as vagina, and we have a different description of what we think vagina means. 1AC says that civil society defines vagina as a reproductive force for civil society. Our argument is that we use it as our argument is that it's a. I don't want to give a static definition, but an amorphous.
Well, it's where I hold my dicks, but the civil society group is the point of reproductivity. That's where
So where you hold your dicks and also the side of reproductivity, just to be clear.
As structural positionality of the black matrix.
Okay, why start there?
Why start where civil society uses black women as a reproductive space for black matrix? The James evidence highlights that racial rape and reproductivity point to the way that civil society maintains its coherence. Civil society maintains its coherence off of the deviance of black women by the constant reproduction of continual death of others.
Okay.
You have to reproduce for civil society to have more babies to kill off.
Prostitute?
Well, that's twofold. The Matrix says that black women have been marked into sexual deviancy. That deviancy has allowed for laws to be placed upon the books.
Are prostitutes?
Black women have been placed into the structural position of the prostitute. The structural position of the prostitute?
Yes.
The structural position of the prostitute explains the way that the civil society is structured antagonistically to black women. Our argument is that the prostitute is the equation to the black matrix. Changing the name doesn't change the game. Our argument is that black women have been relegated into the structural position of the prostitute.
So the prostitution is the black matrix, which is the black woman?
You said prostitution?
Yes. Or the prostitute is the black matrix, which is the black woman?
So 1AC says we have to start at the position of the black matrix.
Which
the 1AC says that the affirmation of the prostitute allows us to, affirm the deviancy, not affirm the deviancy, but the deviancy that is conscripted upon bodies.
I'm still trying to figure out what
the
prostitute is and what the connection is between black women and the black matrix.
Right, I'm explaining that to you. I think that deviancy creates stigma creates law. The 1AC says that the stigma and the law that exists in the status quo is only going to be defined as blackness as being non-normative to civil society. The 1AC offers illicit eroticism.
I haven't heard any of those words yet.
That's what you just said. Process of speech. Keep up.
Illicit eroticism.
I'm trying to, but I have not heard yet is the words that I'm asking you
The
about.
prostitute is placed into the Lausanne evidence, as the Lausanne evidence indicates, the prostitute is marked as a monstrous, deviant, dangerous body. Our argument is that is articulated as blackness.
What constitutes eroticism or illicit eroticism?
Yep, illicit eroticism is non-normative sexuality.
Non-normative sexuality, cool. In the face of visibility, I think this speaks more towards, I think the last piece of young evidence you read, or the second one before that. In the face of visibility, why is it beneficial to embrace that said visibility?
It's not a question of embracing visibility. The 1AC is illicit eroticism, uses our non-normative sexuality to refuse to internalize tropes as civil society is placed upon bodies.
So what is
not
that?
a question of
Why is it good to embrace ourselves?
Why is it good to embrace the politics?
It's not a question of Black women are always already hyper visible in the status quo. The 1AC isn't let's affirm that visibility, but
that's
rather
your young evidence.
The 1AC says that Black women are always already hyper visible in the status quo and can use can use that visibility as a hypersexual economy to change the economy's representation, as per the explanation I just gave.
Is it all paper, Troy? Or no? Troy, it's all paper?
No, it's being emailed.
You already know, it's on the flash drive.
You got both
It's on the
emails?
flash drive.
No, it's on the flash drive. What's on email chain? I know the struggle. I can't put the flash drive. You can start with the email chain.
I'm writing, but it's only to work on the flash drive.
Oh. I'm gonna have to email it back to you and do stuff so it's just easier to start. All right. I know, I'm sure. I thought you were just saying,
No,
my flash drive.
No, my computer won't shut down.
Anyone else want to be on this email chain?
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to send a piece of that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, go ahead and put me on it.
What's your email?
Lundeen, LUNDENSB @gmail.
Thank you. Don SHARPESTEEN@gmail.
All right, I got Sharp.
All right. It's Sharp STEEN.
STEN.
2 E's and then an N.
Sharp STEEN.
STEEN.
At
Gmail.
okay. Anyone else want to be on this? You good? Everyone else?
You got me, right?
Yeah. I got you.
Oh yeah, that's
All the way down.
Oh. I think it is that, yeah.
Well, we're not doing
Thank you.
Yeah, really.
It's actually part of my job description.
Did you get everybody? Why do you gotta get this? Yes, I'm set. Okay. I'm not really good at speeches, but I'm gonna try. Okay, first I would like to thank Amber Kelsey. She has helped me become a better scholar, and she has fought for my scholarship. She has been there when I needed her the most. When I wanted to quit debate, when I thought I was not coming back to this activity at all. She has really been a big inspiration, and I really look up to her, and I appreciate all of the help that she has given me. She's the best coach I've ever had. And I would thank Kevin for being encouraging when I switched from traditional debate and I had no idea what was happening. I was like, oh my gosh, Jesus. How am I going to articulate these disads? Because these disads is looking kind of different. I'm trying to go for politics. But he helped me, I guess, make this transition, which was a lot. Also want to thank Ignacio for also being encouraging. Yes, I did call him Ignacio, not Iggy. For all the support and encouragement during prep, during school, stressing out about how I'm gonna figure out balancing the two. You know that balance is also want to thank my mother, because if it wasn't for her, I actually would not be in policy debate. She is the one who forced me to do it because I was into dramatic interpretation. She was like, no, you need to be over there with them. And I was like, all right. So I thank her for encouraging me to stick into this activity, and also Stacy Stapley, Anthony, my high school debate coach. If it wasn't for her, I would have never known that forensic debate was not forensic science. And I also want to thank DB for helping us prep and giving us encouragement to get here. And that is it. All right. Sorry. It's gonna be one off. Is everyone good?
1 second. Yeah.
The affirmative is emblematic of contemporary human rights discourse in which they attempt to make invisible subjects visible to the Western rights holders, positing of prostitutes within the academy. This ocular epistemology necessitates reducing the other to the position of the object whom the spectator brings into oneself. This both subsumes the other into the spectator's self and victimizes the other, denying a true agency. Effective political reforms of resistance, reproducing the status quo. This is by Schroeder. In 12, the history of human rights can be told as a history of selective differential visibility, one whose position certain bodies, populations, needs to objects of recognition, granted others the power to means to look and confer recognition. Human rights activism becomes a spectacular rhetoric aimed at making the invincible subjects visible to the Western and offering the specific American audience rights holders. It seems to participate and extend the larger human rights spectacle and corporation subjects through imagining technologies, discourse, vision, violation, normative frameworks of a human being made visible through this processing. Corporation relies on the structure to enable human rights abuse to continue. The ocular epistemology visibility-based system knowledge to feel human rights develop as being a paradigm of human rights internationalism recruits and defines human subjects tied to the scenes where the subject human rights discourse becomes visible through their representation. The victim who the spectator becomes a sympathizer, identified with affirms the Western neoliberal spectator that rather than enabling the true response, they are incorporating to the spectator self into the framework of human rights in aid manner to constrain the agency of relation and inferiority recognition. Incorporation of previously invisible subject perpetuates the hierarchical visions of human rights bound up in capitalism concerned with mainly rescuing such visions. The lionized Western activism brief activize those victims of abuse that obscure the material context of transnational interest that allows these abuses to occur by participating in this visual economy. Activists seem to find courage to their intentions can be complicit in reproducing the status quo of power and inequality in which the violations are rooted, and the visibility politics reinforces black criminality and heteronormative forms of black masculinity. In Q in 2014, the fact that DL is now men commonly refer to the suspect is now primarily at the core of making the subject of gaze, which is already instructed by the cultural bias expectation. Black men are often looked at in ways that make them suspicious. DL men are suspects of deviance and extend the description of criminality of judicial law to social sexual law. The central criminal act for the general public is not the DL men act outside, but has been deemed nationally masculine, but also DL men heterosexual and possible to like those subject to be a suspect of deviance, not because of something that he's done, but actual evidence of misconduct, but largely because of the relation to deviance and nature of acting out, which assumes the essential way for black men to behave back when do not subscribe to certain modes of performance. They are deemed to the other code for the word respective of signal masculinity being in the question or being understood as potentially queer. And the 1AC presents an affirmation of the prostitution that revalues blackness away from the space of objection. This black is beautiful move resituates whiteness in the category of human tourniquet. This is Meekest. In 2011, we have to go deeper than the politics of desirability as the effect of capitalism, genocide, and violence. The trauma settled to the bodies must have an understanding of the bodies that can reflect the histories of our own resiliency. Now the prospect of self-shame, no living a shift from a politics of desirability of politics to a politics of ugly that moves us closer to the bodies of movements that disrupt, dismantle, the disturb bodies that are ready to throw down, create a different way for all of us. Not just some of the magnificent body must be cold and unhuman, moving beyond the politics of desirability to loving ugly, respecting only how it's shaped has been exiled because we all do. We run from the ugly and further we run further, we stigmatize it, and the more we get beauty, our community is obsessed with being beautiful, ugly, friends to survive for free, greed, peace, disability, and fatalism, where the bodies are scarred, non-verbally, physically disabled, or to come together, forming folks ingenuous to the books of people, color, and beauty, constructing whiteness, and investing in beauty will never set us free. Beauty has been hurdled as a weapon of protection against violence. This and that we don't think we can reclaim beauty and magnificence was with me in the car rides home long before the days of dehumanized abuse and steals the medical industrial complex, not the ugly itself, but the people in the communities that are ugly and soulful, hidden. This is the only way that we will ever hold physically disabled, dark-skinned people, trans and non-gender corporeal folks, poor folks, HIV folks, who are the criminals in our neighborhoods around the world. This is where we take the notion of beauty and dismantle it, challenge it, not just in gender, but whenever it's being used to harm people, exclusively and shame people. There's a magnificent ugly in this, and there's power in it. And recognize the undesirability of prostitution and blackness is not enough. The one I see is a politics, a difference which perpetuates white supremacist fictions or curiosity around deviance. This is National 2008, the hot and time deviance emerged from the one most significant figures of the contemporary black feminist body functions, the master text allowing European audience to cast the collective gaze and radically sexually marking the other, exporting civilization black feminist narrative, which locked black women's body to sexual deviance. Moral pathology provided a European audience analytic framework. Imagine the term used to denigrate deviant buttocks and racialization race life fiction around the body spread against allegedly abnormal genitalia transformed by environmental cultural curiosity, objects of sex, scientific exploration, scientific entry, environment continued even after death, allowing the European audience to continue the search for proof racial sexual difference bodies body become the quintessential hot and hot body. The hot and hot body becomes quintessential African body becomes represent the black female news is becomes a symbol of a primary metaphor for imagine the racial and sexual difference. European use of black woman's otherness demonstrates the dangers of black female, and this may be able to be combined with the shared picture. Oh no, Kevin. One is the affirms the spreading the lens of the politics of reclamation. Was the way to spread your ass cheeks is our anal ethics, the transgression of all recorporations. The rectum is a grave that access black queer erotics. Nash in 2014 apologizing the gay males anal sex is analogous pathologizing prostitution asserts the public discourse of homosexuals since the AIDS of Christ began starting the resistance gay man prostitutes imagine to spread the lies unquenchable appetite for destruction. Gay man representation ideological states being penetrated, the state of being open to penetration, culturally ideological debate for female policies, the willingness to advocate problems, misogyny, anti-gay male homophobia, and the gay male erotic longing. John Ames is a figure of sexual, insatiable, animated, erotically by design for annihilation through the anus entry point of productive redemptive passivity. Anal ethics is where the opening of the site of productive transgression, self-shattering. The rectum acts as a grave where the ideas of selfhood are productively and pleasurably buried, and the alternative is to reject the what he sees politics of black mixtures in favor of black anality. This pedagogy of the bottom, which locates black power and objection, black women, black men, and black trans. We all have anuses. Here's the dance with that's the X-Men with the whole that the void that absence what we think of human agencies is National 2014, the product of a pleasurable location. The bottom refers to the linear hierarchy of political position, the abject sexual position involving coercion, historical present realities, conquest, enslavement, domination, cruelty, and torture. Bottoming is now simply the aim is penetrated by the social subordination, quotidian spectacular acts of racial violence. The bottom society of black people is also a locus of cognition of black powers, the conflicts of black measures, and the uncomfortable moves of black men take pleasure in the bottom of sexual racial humiliation, degradation. The location of power is black female innocence acting in the context of inality of black women's bodies. The paradigm considered educating views on how the workings of the body can be traced back to environment and education of views. One to understand racial difference. I read that instructional labor of black women performed like anal genre differently. The emphasis on complex pleasures and being gender through becoming a pedagogical body with counter investment in the pleasures displayed in the body is what is left to eat as labor. Pedagogy means that the anus is one that stands for the entire body. The pleasures that emerge from acting pedagogical body invites black feminist scholars to discern the pleasures and destruction from the violence of pornography. Pornography describes the racialization pornographic process being made on the black female flesh, reduces black female bodies to pleasure subjects to objects, and black women's bodies are constructed as pedagogical sizes of bodies that make the difference apparent, reproduce to provide evidence, imagine difference inside it, and fundamental sameness of all bodies. Black female anus can be the quintessential anuses, and it looks at the anus, all look at all others, and revealing black inferiority looks surprisingly racially unmarked. Black female bodies pedagogical roles can be pleasurably unraveled to fiction. The difference of pleasure can include the erotic sexual practice includes the politics of pleasure, humans, pleasure, market card there. Now, David State Black Age, but the ultimate black image is the black anus. More correctly recognized the black anus is racial rape at its extreme anal rape with most object side of pleasure in the space of excrement through the anus. We are all made to occupy even beyond the position that we signify as black women. Reproduction is not the starting point. If the app is correctly produced, is death and must let go of our attachment to reproduction. Slash the dereliction is Nash in 2014, considering black anality, how the black males versus models for black females are open to analyze black feminist theory, waste toxicity field, considering spatiality of innocent black feminist scholars consider black feminist sexualities, imagine the rooted filthy spaces of the ghetto. You analytics open up ways to understand how black sexuality is positive formation and can to ghetto, toxic, filthy, and non-reproductive, and these analytics produce a shift away from the black feminist preoccupation, visual register of location, data, imagine function, to the preeminent side of violence, the locus incessant to the tethering black female bodies conceptions of access. Can I get a drink really quick? I said drink.
I guess what does it mean to refuse to reproduce?
It means to start from the figure of absolute objection.
So it's a starting point. It's not like you literally, as a black woman, need to refuse to reproduce for civil society.
Wait, what?
Yeah. My question is, how do you refuse to reproduce?
Through starting from the figure of the anus, which is the site of non-reproductivity.
So it's the thought process of where we should begin our politics, not how we stop engaging in the politics that exists now. It's a Black imagination. We should start at the Black anus for imagination, for the imagination of a future.
No,
Or Black.
for the way that we construct our pedagogical investments in notions of Blackness, anti-Blackness, and
Right.
productivity.
Okay, then answer the previous question of how do we stop reproducing if it's an unconsensual relationship?
It's not a question of whether or not we can stop reproducing. It's the question of where do we start our analysis of notions of reproductivity. We think that the 1AC has started an analysis of
Start our
reproductivity
analysis
from the figure of the vagina.
reproductivity.
The 1C has started from the figure of the anus.
How do you think civil society starts its analysis the way that bodies are operated?
Say that again, Q.
How do you think that civil society defines bodies?
Well, our Nash evidence seems to indicate that bodies are constituted through pathologization, but
Yes, through
Not-
pathologization, through historical analysis. Is it wrong to say that Black women have been relegated into the position of racial rape because civil society requires the accumulation exchange of Black
I
women?
think that's a pretty good link into our humanism argument, is because it's much more easier in our hearts as Black people to imagine that there is some form of value to Blackness, even if it is one of non-value, than it is for us to understand.
How
that
do you
there-
determine?
Because even though you
How do
say
you
that
determine
there
what's
is no value
valuable?
to
How do you
Blackness, your
determine what
idea that Black women still
No,
have a
all right,
purpose
thanks,
in civil
Kevin.
society
Thanks,
is
Kevin.
a reproduction
Thank
of the
you.
philosophy of humanism,
I guess my next question is,
which is
how do you?
which is what we
I'm
call
going to
it.
ask the same question until you answer it. How do you think you can refuse to
And we're going to give you the
reproduce?
same answer until you ask a new question.
Dope. I guess let's talk about. As we can see, I guess let's talk about the how does the alternative solve the materiality portions of 1AC?
the alternative solves by, I guess, starting from the position of the anus and
By
the
starting from the
position-
position of the anus, you just indicated that that's not what civil society stigmatizes as like the deviant nature of politics.
Well, I think
how do you
I think
mobilize
I
something
think
that's not
I'm trying to find out what
deviant?
piece of evidence it is. I'm pretty sure that it's the first piece of Nash evidence. She indicates that the reason why the violences of civil society are able to be explicated to notions of Blackness and notions of sexual deviancy is because of this fictitious notions of difference that was created
Yeah,
as a
fictitious
justification
notions of
for
difference. You just
European
indicated that those
colonizing mission.
fictitious
We think that the
notions of
1AC
difference
gets at
are
the
having
root
a
cause
vagina that's used
of
for
civil
reproduction.
society's violence.
I'm curious
which is
how the alternative
fiction
resolves the internal link.
Okay, let's not all talk about each other. Just question and answer.
Yeah.
Time is up.
Okay, let's take two. Come on. That was a hummus party. I just got some rice. Huh? I just got some rice. You know, to be able to like eat.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you done? Who is it? You done?
I have some.
Okay.
No. Thank you.
Are my bags? I can't get on the internet.
You're not on the conference.
No, it's like not loading. It might be too many people on it. Oh yeah, now it's working. I'll get it for you. Yeah, I got it. I definitely should go that television.
What's up, everybody? So a couple people and things I want to thank. First, I want to thank the comms department at the University of Kansas and all of the faculty associated with the program, past, present, and future. Possibly me, we'll see. the University of Kansas debate team, all of the people who have been on my team, many of them who are your coaches, your contemporaries. You've really helped me in this very long journey to get to this moment. So I really thank you. Dr. Harris, if you heard everybody calling out Roos, because he's the man, that's really all I can say about that. Harris knows where it's at. The whole coaching staff, past and present, I've been at KU for 5 years, so I've had a ton of coaches. Lindsay, Phil, Mick, Kelly, Nat Penn, Carney, Bricker, Emily, Allie, Justice, Stat, Jaker, Fox, Stone, Banky, Kennedy, and everybody I forgot because I'm sorry, I'm trying, really. I want to thank Sean in particular, not really for being my coach, but more so for being my friend. He was on the squad with me when I was a freshman and a sophomore, and I was total poop at debate, but I used to read all the arguments that he read. He took the time to teach me, but also just like be a good human being to me, which is sometimes rare around debaters, as we know. I like to thank Umi, Auntie Nawarti Hayati, Uhabu Jidam, and my brother, Kelvin, my whole family who supports me. I like to thank all of the other Black women that are in this activity. As I see your faces, you are giving me so much life. When I was a freshman, I was like, there's no Black women in D3. Me and Jaleesa and Nicole's it's not a lot of us. So to see you here, it's just like, whew, goddamn. To thank the Women Debate Institute for providing me a space to connect with other women across the country. It's really a transformative experience. All of the people who've been fucking with me since day one. I am, if you don't know me, team no new friends. It is what it is. So all of the people who believed in me before I believed in myself, which includes my coaching staff and KU people, but also includes a number of people in this community. Ryan, Devin, Chris, Nicole, Jaleesa, Kevin, Toya, Troy, all of y'all who knew I was going to be something before I thought I was going to be something. I super appreciate it. And I'm really grateful to be here. So thank y'all for letting me be here. It'll be facing in the off-case position. Okay.
We come from a time when Black women slaves were raped by white masters for the purpose of bringing united state government has failed to realize these women were human beings rather than horses to manipulate for more in-person proficient production. We come from a time where we still fail to realize what it means for a Black woman to have press to take up space, to be recognized for her action. That we role of the ballot is a question of impact, framing the role of the ballot should create methodology for the challenges, respectability, politics, deliberates, posture, methodology, not to itself to the violence committed against postures by the technical and social, racial exclusion that demonize the Black woman as dirty, dangerous, and deviant as per Islam evidence. The one to see the Islam evidence is there has been a convergence of the dangerous, deviant Black body trope and the contagious body to create the question of they have not entered or prepared for the what provided away by Black anal malady. We write a reason by Black anality, but people to solve three impacts from the first question of material reality. Piece of young was created. The one who sees the interim political strategy for where Black women to create material gains by using sexuality that is given to them. They have not provided a way for Black women to become invisible or the Black women to become invisible, which means that we have an overwhelming unique question of being to change the material economy's representation. The second question is a question of pleasure. That they have conceded that young illicit eroticism is the application of non-normative sexuality, which means it would include things like the alternative. It's not a question of just reproductivity, but understanding how sexuality operates for the Black female body, which is not unique to only anality. They have also not answered how politics operate, respectively operates not only just to discipline Black gay men, but it operates to discipline ourselves. Now, neoliberalism has radically changed from the function of the woman activity, while it's organized social orders for governmentality, individual self-governance, and interpersonal governance through social norms is important to attune itself. So it means it's not just a question of how Black men on the down low are disciplining police, but also how Black women are Goldberg and 9. Unruly populations are subject to negative political discipline, the threat of imprisonment. These forces are defined through racial extension and rearticulation become subject to subjects of the state of acceptance, technology, population management, races now mobilized inside and outside the contemporary state. Racial implications are actively mobilized by mode of securitization, more robustly neoliberalism, the more likely race will be rendered largely immune from state intervention. Neoliberalism ensures the relation of state to private sphere. It also ensures a space for socio-racial intervention. Given the legal regime of equality before the law, the state can no longer be seen as to engage in or license racially discriminatory acts. Instead, state reaches for more or less curtail, making privatized racial structure mostly balanced state delimitation. The slogan of neoliberalism might be the state looks after you it looks after your interests by encouraging you to choose select yourself, and while it locks up the undesirable traditional language of objects of racial humiliation are so much erased, and similarly structurally transformed now, now silently reference those who threaten the social security of the nation, and the governmentality shapes how we understand reproductivity and sexuality, which means that the alternative is you should frame the alternative in context of necessary and sufficient. The alternative may be necessary, but it's not sufficient to solve the affirmative, because we have to understand how productivity also shapes but we also shape sexuality, and the politics must begin from the black nature. I'm going to read another part of the piece of James 13 from the 1 AC. James 13. Part of the trauma of capital males entails the sexual violations, boys and men could be forced into proxy rape, coercive rape for the interior edification or enrichment of the captors or masters, and the black boys and the men self-rape victims outside of the marriage poultry. Heterosexuality, black males raped by white captors are forced to rape others with both outside the near from poultry backside of daily black captive males, rape for pornographic, sadistic pleasure of material gain either. Dangles are exchanged for this fall. Following the branch of the broken branches collapses heavily upon the black nature's black philosophy, undervalues male entanglement in the investment and ritual and violence against reproductivity, loses sight of the violence manifested through sexual trauma and disintegration, forced breeding or sterilization, and the abuse of contempt for children. Thus, the currency of philosophical engagement for freedom is undermined. Male capitals, feminized, black race, and terrorized by mutating the manifestations of white supremacy of structural male supremacy over black females. Male capitals did and do not, could, and could not suffer rape as a routine entertainment or terrors or forced reproductive. We agree that discussion is not about which transgender being suffered most under the racial subjugation, rather than the focus on the nature of the subjugation, extensive reach into interior space, its colonization and sacrification of black women to have no public record, no you conduct the critique proper versus permutation. The permutation you can do affirm the prostitute and non-music parts of the alternative. We will get permutation solvency is pure further Nash evidence, because we are in affirmations of a politics of ugly. She says a politics of ugly is one that understands the effects of capitalism, genocide, and violence, and the trauma that settles into our bodies. Our advocacy statements about the prostitute's body. It's not about sex work, i.e. prostitution. All of your link arguments don't apply in this context. She says we must shift from a politics of desirability and beauty to be in of the world and pursuit of a whiteness, but rather affirm blackness. This is consistent with their nationalism between the permutation of public self. There is no link to this bias evidence. We're not history of human rights discourse which uses racist assessment. We are not adherents to human rights discourse, but rather use criticism of racist uses to signify to criminalize blackness and commodification and incorporation, which the bias evidence is talking about how you can commodify in the structure. It's not only an inevitable part of the uniqueness argument in the one, but it's also bi-directional means we're involved fucking in finals, which means there's some risk of this linking back to you also. Impact variant blank. We can create ourselves as the mechanical, divine, biological, collective body. James and 13. Individualism, false ideology, rebel, inertial, has family obligations, duties, like sin to mass people, the life of the death, expenses, kinship, disturbed, retirement, as a willingness of its membership, same body to suffer the vulnerabilities, victories, moving, moving, target, race, passion. One is not a struggle to realize that one has become like other niggas, one struggles to accept that one is other niggas, neither education or wealth, but no connection, but protection, but the violence of enslavement. Those natives who have been told that they are better because of the proximity of colonized slaves, because of religion, education, wealth, and political structures are for for root and waking enough saved should just have promised greater than physical survival in the face of execution. Be saved to just a position outside the camp's reach with time and space and trajectories. This violent incarceration that's touched lives decades later. The new being is now the cyborg. It is individual and collective and overt rebellion alive, because everyone is now become mechanized in this rebellion with the spiritual force of freedom driving a biological, mechanical, divine. The beauty of the one is to struggle for the realization of the cyborg. The cyborg glimpses the possibilities of permanent revolution, the conversion to seemingly more than blood and rational choices shaped by the imagination and memory. Longing and aversion as a cyborg is one mass unified as its own biological, mechanical, and divine formation. Revolutions mark the end of time. Its basis conventionally understood what happens when the human becomes part machine, part defined. Their distinction are not just the end of the world, but the end of humanity. Blackness can no longer be the negation of white supremacy. Maneuvers is something no longer human or subhuman and flight from the human. Now there is also no link to the second piece of MQ evidence, because the best plus questions of unique means that I provided about is not a question of making ourselves invisible or visible. What do we do in a kind of representation that locates our bodies that locates our bodies, especially in the context of sexuality? And they this piece of Mingus evidence is about the one he sees affirmation of prostitution. I've already introduced about the one he sees on an affirmation of sex work, rather understanding that sex interim political strategy on the alternative. This is something affirmative. I explained this argument about the permutation. Means it's a question of non-normative sexuality. The Lausanne evidence is an the Lausanne and the Young evidence is elicited responses. It's a way to theorize the way sexuality operates. It's not a static notion of sexuality, but which is why the permutation would be able to solve their alternative. It's just a question of adding on something. It's very functional claim plus. Now we meet the limits of the black anality evidence because it says that we have to understand blackness as race toxicity and fills with all of the analysis of the James evidence. There's only a risk that the one NC alternative creates a level of forgetting, which leads back into the James evidence. Is there's a folding in of the folding in the black female into the black male frame that creates a libidinal linguistic violence where we are against so the wombs of black women are sacrificed out of the debate. Now the cyborg means that we refuse to forget forgiveness. It's not a question of where. It is a question of where we start our politics. That does not preclude the alternative. There's also a double turn here. What?
No, my bad. I see what you're saying, but it'll take me a second to work through it.
There's a double turn because they say that we should stop understanding sexuality as physical. Sexuality as physical features as per the topics of evidence that they read. I can't remember. But the 1NC politics starts from a position of sexuality and anality. If we get to access any of this Nash evidence about how we understand sexuality and how it gets operationalized, it's evidence of the permutation. They don't have a reason why reproductivity is bad. They just have a reason why what they do is good, which is a reason why you shouldn't reject the affirmative. Yeah, cool. That's sufficient. Yeah. Okay. There's also not a discussion of how politics opposite trans was stressed near. We when the one sees a competition, respectability, politics, we have external impact. The Jan and Mock, we read in the one sees that we have to have a space for these type of politics. Even if they win impactions, the affirmative, they cannot impact the space the one see create the form of collective response where we can engage each other that little bit. Jan and Mock evidence is that we have to have a space for the messy, erotic, which means there are going to be some slippages and picture that maybe the one does not assume so, but the permutation would certainly resolve that. Not a direct on-point answer to the Lausanne evidence, which means that we are always already an understanding of how anality operates, because it talks about how non-normative sexuality operates. That would include things like the black anus. You have presumed what the black vagina is. We said that it's a point of reproductivity, but it's also not the point of reproductivity, i.e. that there are other things that are attached to it, if that makes sense. You kind of function those. I can clarify if you want to ask about it. It made sense to me when I said it. Maybe
Okay, you say that we can create ourselves as mechanical. What is the purpose of that? What does that mean?
What? The cyborg? So to create permanent revolution, to transgress time and space, right? There's a sacrification of black women. There's an inability to locate ourselves. And we say that we can create a level of collectiveness or relationality with other like black people to create community, right? To transcend the humanism that scripts us.
How does that happen?
What do you mean?
How do you do that?
That's the evidence. It's about, if your argument is about how we imagine.
The mechanical is the ability to connect the past, present, to the future, and a realization that we're all fighting the same fight.
It's like a collapsing of temporality.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I
Okay,
just said.
gotcha. What is your double bind argument? I
mean?
didn't understand it.
The double turn?
Yes, or double turn.
Okay, so if the focus is a question of sexuality and physicality, then the focus of reproductivity is also important in the discussion to understand, for example, how the sacrification of black women happens, how black women are distanced from their children, how black women reproduce for civil society, and how that flesh is taken from them, and that reproductive labor happened via slavery and the passage, but also the relationship that we have in terms of civil society, in terms of our children and our families, right? The anus is not, if your framing is about sexuality, then you disavow reproductivity, you've impacted on yourself.
Okay. You say that the role of the ballot is to challenge, I guess, the politics of respectability. How does the 1AC challenge that respectability?
We think illicit eroticism is a way to do that, right? An affirmation of non-normative sexuality. That sexuality should not and cannot be scripted as civil society code, right? Like that, we're not just bitches here to birth babies.
What do you do to change that scripting?
What do you mean? The argument that we make in the 1AC about why our advocacy text is about affirm the prostitute is that the body is political. I don't have to perform or do shit to affirm that that's a
I have
thing.
a question. You said that there's 3 impacts to the case that the alt doesn't solve. The first was materialism. What was the second one?
Oh, I said pleasure.
Pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
What about it?
What do you mean? And community? What do you mean?
Like
What
you
about
said,
it?
materiality, pleasure, politics, and
Yes, illicit eroticism is a mechanism to access pleasure. If you also have a mechanism to access pleasure, that's nice. Permutation solved. You have to have a reason why illicit eroticism is an insufficient mechanism to access pleasure, or it's plan plus. That's how debate be working.
Gotcha.
You have another question.
You have any other questions? Yeah, we're good.
Okay, we're setting up. Okay, I sent it. I'm not gonna go back.
Hey, y'all, is everybody here? Or can I go to the bathroom?
Yeah, go ahead. He's grabbing water. Now's a good time.
Oh.
7. like a toothpick or something? It's stuck in my tooth, and I got my wisdom teeth under it.
If you Google, I don't know the actual. They got all of them, everything. You can also go to the.
Yeah, he did. He said.
We're all here.
Hey y'all, let's be a part of paper. Get my checks off camera. I'm also completely terrible at thank you speeches. So if there's anybody in the past 8 years of my debate career that I forget, I apologize and I love you so much. I just want to take the time to thank Amber Kelsey in particular. I think that you're absolutely amazing and you put in so much help to make me, it's not a first round, as close as possible. And so I thank you. So I thank you for that. I thank you for all of the sacrifices that you've done, your sleep, your health, your ability to walk correctly, sometimes clean clothing, the ability to have me in your house, even though you say you don't want me there, but I know that you do. I just thank you for all of that. I also want to thank Iggy in particular, and I will call you Iggy. The amount of growth that you have helped me achieve over the past 3.5-ish years. It's just been amazing. I came in as this little arrogant freshman that had just came from a little bit of success in high school, and you taught me that I actually sucked in compared to everyone else in college. And you helped me get to the level to potentially be here where I am today. Also want to thank you for helping me try to get better at cross-ex, even though I still suck. I just want to let you know that your efforts did not go unrecognized. I want to thank Jarrell Baker and Chris Randall. If it wasn't for you, I would not have been here. You kept me in high school. You kept me fed at debate tournaments. And I just wanted to say I appreciate and I thank everything that you've done for me. I want to thank Dale Birch extremely. You have done so much more for my debate career than I could ever even describe in words in this thank you speech. And from the time that you dedicated, from everything that you sacrificed, from your amazing letter of recommendations that got me an invite to Kentucky Fellows, where I learned everything it is that I learned about debate. I just want to say I thank you and I love you and I appreciate you. I want to thank my teammates, Corey Johnson, Amina Begum, Sierra Underdew, and Benny Goodman. We spent hours in the team room, cutting cards, prepping, and I just want to thank you for helping Jordan and I get here today. I want to thank Amina Ruffin. Miss you. You've been with me since junior year of high school. I miss just sitting down, talking about debate arguments, laughing at people, making fun of people in particular. But I'm glad that I got to see you this weekend. I love you. I want to thank the Towson administration for making this all possible, for giving us the budget, for providing us with transportation, all of those good things. I just want to make sure that your efforts don't go unrecognized. Towson alumni, thank you for everything that you've done for us at this tournament in particular. But also just over the span of my debate career, since before I even entered Towson, you all were kind of a motivating factor to get me to make Towson my top choice, even though there are probably other schools with better academics. But you made me choose Towson for debate because of the home and community that you made me feel like it was, and I appreciate it. I want to thank my mom and my cousin Tierra Whitley for making sure that, first off, I'm safe at debate tournament and not dead, because you call me at least 9 times a day. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that, and thank you for keep checking up on me and keeping me fed, keeping me clean and healthy to make sure I'm here. I also lastly want to thank, not lastly, I want to thank Ryan and Toya, because freshman year I wanted to quit debate at the end, and I remember talking to you all in the hotel room after your quarters debate, and you all just kind of helped me see the value of this activity again. You helped me find myself in my place in this activity. And if it wasn't for you all, I wouldn't have stayed here, and you continue to help me grow even as of today. You believe in me when sometimes I don't see a way for myself, and I just want to thank you both and for everything. And last but not least, I want to thank Joy. You my road dog, homie. You like my shining thing that helps people check me out. But then I'm also that for you. And I also want to thank you for saving me in the middle of my junior year of debate when I was left without a partner, and you stepped in without any experience with performance debate, and you kind of just got in there, took them losses with me, and we still wound up making it to the octafinals of CETA and reaching the NBT. And so I just wanted to thank you. And even though this is my last year, I'm going to miss you, and I love you with all of my heart. Okay, the order is. The order is the criticism with an overview, and then the flow, but the permutations at the top anyway. So I'm going to start with it. And you all got the stuff, right?
The email and the paper.
Yep, paper. Everyone good?
Assholes are like opinions everyone has, and which is why this debate is a question about how to effectively get to anti-blackness while keeping the larger structural analysis of objection of fleshliness at the center. The one I see starting point of black vengeance that attaches blackness to notions of reproduction, which is a humanist interrogation of blackness that attaches a non-normative notion of non-value valuation to black society. The one I see is able to problematize the things that black women produce are criminalized, and ultimately which attaches blackness to notions of reproduction rather than return to the site of non-reproduction, the site of irreconcilability of pedagogy of the bottom. It is at this site that we can interrogate humanism, destruction, anti-blackness. Now they do permutation, but this is the method. The method because you don't get a permutation because the question of which method is better for theorizing the larger structural material implications of anti-blackness. The permutation, the method makes it possible to be there because it means that you are always able to foreclose the nuances of highly speculative, highly technical debates in which we can test whether or not the affirmative actually good, which makes the one a moot point, but also means that the affirmative is a moving target, i.e., the one I see is a focus on the vagina and reproduction, but all of a sudden it encompasses everything. This is a vote of fairness indication that differently permutation is different because blackness lack the capacity to reach full humanity, and therefore full gender construction renders us all susceptible to rape in the heart of hearts as black people. It is easy to imagine rape in relation notions to reproduction, so that there was a positive, so there was a purpose and value to our woundedness, even if that woundedness was
attached to chattel slavery and valued only by civil society was truly horrible to imagine as a space of non-reproductivity, i.e. the anus. It's a libidinal, this is a libidinal investment that would need to be separate in order for the permutation to work, which fractures to produce a bad educational model. Now, it's also a question of the sequencing of this between the only the alternative table to theorize blackness in the position of flexes while also being incorporating things like reproductivity, black anality, and these black feminist narratives about focusing on how the anus constructs black sexuality is dirty and non-reproductive, resolving the reproduction argument. This is National 14. Very little attention space implication that this eccentricity of black sexuality, black feminist theory can reproductively shifting toward the black female anus, interrogating the units generated in through the space and exploring how black sexualities are naturally reproductively linked to the opening. Consider black analysis opens up new sites of analytics for black feminist theory ways to consider how black female sexuality matches to be rooted in the ghetto with 30. These non-normative, these new analytic produce a shift away from the black feminist recuperation, the visual register as a locus of the incessant tether of black female bodies to the conception of the anus. Now, additionally, all of the link arguments are this as to the permutation. But before I get there, I just want to say that we simply say no to your attempt to spread truffle butter on our anuses. Now, additionally, all of the link arguments are this as to the permutation because argue the link debate here. The first is that the permutation merely attaches themselves to the institutional values of the debate for closing the possibility of self-revaluation of illicit economies because they will always produce structural notions of fundamentally anti-blackness, which is an independent external side to the criticism, even if we don't win the altars to shape for in 12, it's allowing institutional purposes to preempt on and destructive of life liberty when we identify and attach ourselves to the institution of values we don't everybody's purpose to come to, but that's the most of the bitch to make its own human no values. Institutions have policies that are being consistent, only perpetuating them to human have no values, fungible risks to exploit behalf of institutional ends. One, we have identified ourselves to the purpose beyond ourselves, we come up with the most vicious forms of wrongdoing, but are willing to attach ourselves to external values, separates us from this focus innocence of being. Now also, so the reproductivity dissat is also a dissat to the permutation, but also the structural case turn to confirm the focus on reproduction is a humanist reinvention because it centers black female reproduction as the locus of the matrix. This represents a limited understanding of black fundamentals, specifically in terms of sexual dominance and deviation of the slave. The true locus is the black anus because it reveals how white society produced narratives of black sexuality as toxicity, dirty filth, because it is analogized to literal shit. Furthermore, it reveals how heteronormative logic review blackness as the bottom of society in relation to disdain for queer pleasures located in being the bottom of getting fucked this, understanding the black flesh shows the affirmative impacts but cannot resolve our humanist statue. The affirmatives that they end up reinscribing anti-black, which has three implications. The first of these is you can vote negative on presumption because they literally structurally turn the affirmative, but also it is an external impact to the criticism because they will always reify the position and the logic of black anality, which means that they can never get at the structural antagonism that exists at the heart of the modernity that allows for the recreation of things like the black cross in the first place. Additionally, it means that the only alternative can solve. Now, the alternative solve the case debate in three particular ways. The first is that the young evidence is not specific to reproductivity. Illicit eroticism can happen in the world. The alternative is not tied to notions of reproductivity or beauty politics, which would be the one and all, which is also the evidence that I read above. And additionally, we resolve the pleasure arguments because I won. And the Nash evidence seems to indicate that the bottom is about black pain. It's about recognizing that there is a set of black power that exists at the bottom while attending to notions of things like pleasure and the way that we connect and experience each other effectively. Now, the next argument that I'll make, the next argument that the Towson concedes because the most of our speech is merely defensive and makes us frown on there being no link differential between the affirmative negative. It's our second piece of Nash evidence. She indicates that focusing on notions of sexual difference and sexual deviancy and racial construction is a fictitious notion of difference that was a European that Europeans justified in order to export things like colonized mission. She gives an example of hot top Venus and how European colonizers had to take her body and then make her sexually deviant from European women in order to justify things like experimentation on black flesh, which is an impact turn to the affirmative because it means that the affirmative in embrace of the bride prostitutes and embrace of the fictitious notion of difference that create the foundation and the basis for this colonized nation that exists in status quo. Only the alternative position of black equality, which is our second piece of that, which our second to last piece of Nash evidence indicates that we are able to start from the pleasurable location of the bottom in order to theorize a new sexual position. The bottom is not simply about the anus that is penetrated, it's also about the subordination and the quotidian spectacular acts of racial violence. The bottom becomes a site for new theorization of black power. Now, additionally, she indicates at the bottom of the card that we are able to use the black female body as the body for excellence because when we look at the anus, we realize that all anuses look the same, and there is no distinction between the two, which allows us to overcome and remedy this fictitious notion of difference, but also it allows us to use the Black female body as that pedagogical section. It's not starting from the vagina, but from the anus. She says that this is able to produce a new theory of corporeality, a new interrogation of things like prototype, and that allows us to theorize notions of racialization that is connected notions of productivity, but also allows us to theorize things like black male rape, which is highly which is also not in the 1AC. It's a problem also because it means that even their analysis of racial rape is also does two things. A, focus on this fictitious notions of gender difference, which is our Nash evidence, because they start from the politics and from the position of the Black female, but it also means that it is a foreclosed analysis of the experience that Black males have the notions of racial categorization, which restructurally reify system of anti-Blackness. There, 2AC piece of James evidence the case debate merely comes too late, but also it still folds Black male into a notion of reproductivity, which is one that is necessarily violent, but also for closest and understanding of the alternative. Now, I'll do a little bit of work on the flow because I really only think she has like one or two offensive arguments. The first is the cyborg argument, but these communities reify structural notions of feminism. That work was done above, and also the lapsing of time is not offensive, but it's still problematized by the 1AC politics, because our Nash evidence seems to indicate that these temporal distinctions that focus on fictitious notions of difference, i.e. that we can establish a cyborg community based around the fictitious notion of difference of Black females is one that is only capable of structurally verifying notions of feminism, but also notions of anti-Blackness. She says double term, but this argument doesn't make sense because our Nash evidence indicates that focusing on notions of difference is one that is problematic, but also focus on notions of the vagina that is not start from the politics of the Black anality is problematic, which is why our last piece of Nash evidence indicates it's necessary in order to be able to resolve the criticism, which means that this double term argument is functionally does not make sense. It was a waste of time. Now you says politics of trans women, but Nash evidence indicates this because this this heteronormative difference was constructed through fictitious notion of difference, which means that the alternative is able to break down the distinction of gender relations and gender the deviations that allow for trans violence to exist within the status quo. Can we resolve this argument better than you do? I think that it is indicative that the alternative is able to resolve large portions of the affirmative debate, but it is not irreversible. The link does not go in the other direction. It's impossible for the affirmative to resolve the ultimate or the impact to again for all of the reasons that are listed above, but also because their theorization anti-Blackness is one that forecloses an analysis of things like Black anal rape because they start from the position of the vagina.
Yeah. What is a vagina?
As per your cross-section of the 1AC, you said it is the place of Black reproductivity, but also the place where we hold genetics.
Okay. Just so we're clear, because that's going to be a thing that's coming back up.
No,
so what's this argument about? I'm being dead serious. I said this too, so how about what's this argument about truffle butter? What's the problem of slippage between understanding productivity and?
No, we don't want you to swipe truffle butter on our butts. That's not consensual, which is what the permutation is.
Okay. Okay. So, what piece of Nash evidence do you think makes a claim about mutual exclusivity? All of your Nash evidence is very good about anality.
All of them.
And where do you think in the Nash evidence she says that reproductive focus is not possible or not good? She says a focus on the anus is good. Okay. Where's Nash talking about focus on reproduction? Not good, not productive, not okay, can't happen.
Two answers to your question. The first is that I think the first link differential comes from the let me get the specific one from you so you know. I think it's the first one.
I understand the links.
I know.
I'm trying to ask what piece of Nash.
Yeah, I'm about to tell you. I wanted to tell you a specific one though. The first piece of Nash evidence about which doesn't
in the 1AC or
which doesn't come from the article that you read because it doesn't come from the Black Anality article, talks about the fictitious notions of difference that European colonizing mission had to establish in order to justify colonization missions and experimentations of Black female flesh. We think that the 1AC is an erasure of those fictitious notions of difference.
Your other Nash evidence is
understanding of using the Black female body.
Your other Nash evidence talks about how anality is an important way to understand how queerness operates. Why isn't queerness or gender just the same differentiation?
Which we think is foreclosed. Which we think is foreclosed through.
So it's good to why is queerness not fictitious?
It is.
Why should we understand that and not understand reproductivity?
What's the link then? Why is this linked to you
The
two?
1 and T alternative isn't about understanding notions of queerness.
That's what your Nash evidence is
No,
written
it's
in
not. The
context
Nash
of.
evidence is written in the context of Black anality and using the anus as a foundation
And to
for
understand
understanding.
queerness.
And
If we prove that your Nash
for
evidence
using the anus as a
Kevin.
mechanism to
Kevin.
understand the way that things
we
like
prove-
queerness,
if
things
we-
like sexual deviancy, things like racial difference are constructed through fictitious notions of difference. Our Nash evidence,
I have
which is
another
really good on this question,
I have another
about how all anuses look the same.
Kevin, if you're not gonna let me ask another question, we shut it down. So I guess I want to know why you say it's a fictitious difference. If you are able to solve the material portions of the 1AC, even if this is some made up shit out of nowhere, why shouldn't we still attune ourselves to those differences?
Because attuning ourselves to those differences attunes ourselves to a pedagogical investment in European colonizing experimentation practices. We think that we should disengage from those practices in order to look at the anus and the
I
sameness
understand how it
between
operates on a
bodies.
pedagogical level. I'm talking about how it operates on a material level.
We
That's
think,
fine.
I mean,
No,
that's
I'm not-
the
no,
key to see
okay.
people. No, I'm just letting you know if you want to read the cards. you
I
can.
did read the cards. That's why I'm confused.
I like Sheraton, right? No, she's about to listen to
I already said it.
Hey! She about to give a speech, y'all. Come on.
I'm sitting. No, no.
It's going to be the beauty argument and then the vice grip stuff. Just, I know it's the K, but I just want yeah. Everyone good?
No,
Oh, are you listening to this?
no, I'm sitting.
You have this.
No.
Everyone good? We're impact turning their role of the valley because the affirmation of beauty folds Black bodies back into the white aesthetic. There, the attempts to transform the significations of desirability, even though they say they don't. This is the politics of beauty. They attempt to engage the change, the coordinates of what can talent as beautiful. This is the politics that perpetuates the ethics of shame and violence because it exposes the next thing that is considered ugly. They're wanting to attempt to create representations to highlight the beauty of women, to highlight erotic power. Our biggest evidence indicates that a politic of ugly is necessary to move beyond the politics of desirability. The further we run from a politic of ugly is what stigmatizes beauty and excludes those bodies who are demarcated as inherently ugly, rendered as inherently disposed of. Beauty is constructed through whiteness. Investing in beauty will never set us free, will never have radical potential because beauty is always hurled as a weapon against the Black community. We must take the notion of beauty and dismantle it and challenge it. Whatever it is used to harm people and exclude people and shame people, there's no link to this argument. Their Young 10 evidence says that Black women struggle to employ tactics every day of survival labor where the parameters of racialized sexual economy by working within the system. Black women's traditional role, sex workers using hardcore as a space of self-fashioning, self-promotion, and cultural workers create their own pornographic and promotions highlight the erotic power and beauty of those women in images while sustaining an ethical working environment for those sex workers, especially women. Don't allow them to shift outside of this advocacy because that would be a reason why they don't get the permutation. Now go on to the The 1AC is an attempt to make invisible subjects visible through their challenging of politics and respectability within the academy. This constituting Black women as the victim with whom the spectator must empathetically identify with. They bring those narratives of pain closer by describing how Black women are rapeable within the academy. This forecloses radical potential because their liberation is contingent on the politics of recognition, but also renders the commodity fungible to be constituted as an empty vessel filled with projections of the master because because they make the black female body coherent to the academy. This means that they reify the blackness as a spectacle, and with this empathetic identification, transform it to the respectable for the master's meaning, entering it into an economy of white feelings, appropriate identification, and forces an ongoing system of chattel slavery. This is Hartman 97. We need to ask the site of suffering readily lends itself to inviting identification, given the acclaimed transformative capacities of pain and sentimental culture, prevalence of public space, suffering inclusive pageantry of the trade and spectacle of punishment, circulating the of reports of slave holds, which contributed to the ideas of consciousness enslaved, the most available at the site of the scene of beating, readily lends itself to identification enslaved. It does so fixing the naturalized conditions of pain embodied within, and never bringing pain close, explicit spectacle of the body, and oddly confirms the spectacular character of the suffering and inability of whiteness, captives pain extends to the spectacular character of suffering. In other words, shocking, ghostly presence of pain restricts their sentience for the suffering, induce a reaction of feelings. It must be brought close in. The very effort to bring it near and inspect it closely to be dissipated can only be brought near by a way of imagination to widen near bodies and make the captive suffering visible and discernible. Empathetic identification cannot be extricated from the economy of chattel slavery with the projection of one's feelings of phantasm slipping to captivity yields the ownership of captive body. Nonetheless, entangled this economy of identification facilitated by a kindred possession of fungibility of commodity makes the captive body abstract and the empty vessel vulnerable projections of other feelings, values, of property, dispossessed body, enslaved surrogate for the master's body, and since it guarantees the disembodied universality, it acts as a sign of power, dominion, and being the mutilated body presumably established a materiality, existence, materiality, and suffering directly hallucinates the recognition of the virtue body is being placed, the signs of value of other bodies, the desires to occupy blackness, sentimental resources founded by the enabled material relations of chattel slavery. They don't get to access this argument because their only argument is that they're not a human rights discourse, but this is not a answer to the argument, which means there's an external impact that's occupied versus the 09. The release of value in the university plunges in abyss of meaning is ripped from action. Let's talk about the fight and sleep, but always managed from the perpetually deliverable. We push from the boundaries of form and reconfigure ourselves. Contains the university sales of marginalized being a capital invested here is managing a social death generates civilized life, which meaning public relations for death about reproduce illusion, meaning reality can be separated from the wombs qualities of the future everywhere of democracy, totally managing machine, the proliferation of technologies of death. The university is a machine that wants to grow, accumulate, expand, absorb more of the living to the peculiarly perverse machinery at this critical juncture. So only way it continue to grow more intensifies exploitation. This means that they can't access their materiality and impacts because the only material gains that they have is through making the black woman fungible and visible within the academy, which allows their scholarship to be co-opted within the space. They also don't get access to this reproductivity argument solving for the affirmative because they only relegate the black female body to the victim, which the master will seek to incorporate. This means that they don't get the permutation that benefits on the criticism because the prostitute's body cannot just be constituted at the absolute dereliction, which means that this means that they don't get access to the criticism, and we are impact turning the eroticism arguments on the affirmative.
Yeah.
Missing Christian.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Still missing somebody. I know it's.
No problem. You guys go ahead. Oh, it'll be case. The wherever y'all have the university stuff load, and then the critique proper. One, two, three. Conceded the role of the body to best separates the process first is how they've considered three external impacts versus material. What betterment the one he sees says that you can use illicit eroticism for material betterment. Second is the pleasure argument. The pleasure argument comes problematized by the alternative, which indicates that we have to find pleasure for the anus. Argument is that sexuality shouldn't be placed upon anatomical features, aka your anus or your vagina, rather should be placed upon the illicit form of eroticism, which might mean that you don't like to have sex, might mean like you like to dance, but not have sex. Rather, illicit eroticism allows for all normative sexuality to be articulated. I sure as hell know that not all people like to have it through the anus, and not all people have anuses, but all people like non-normative sexuality and like to define their sexuality the way they want to. Problematize is not only the alternative, but you don't have a link, you have a link to the status quo. Argument is that the status quo is fucked up, and you replicated that from politics when you say we have to like it from the anus. I'm going on to the alternative. I'm going on to the I mean, they say problematize or roll about it, or roll about is and beauty. When he says that we have to get outside of the respectability politics that says it's for either beautiful or ugly. The Young evidence is in a link. Young says that black women need to accept themselves as beautiful, aka accepting what is ugly to civil society. society. Blackness, that's not an internal link to your evidence. It's just a reason why the sequencing question of the affirmative has to come first. We have to escape the politics of respectability before we can't articulate blackness outside of the status quo. They say uniqueness is blackness. They say that our own evidence uniqueness is blackness is going to be the status quo. The 1AC doesn't do anything to re-articulate the way that blackness operates as per the way its relation to civil society. Rather, destroy the politics of respectability, make blackness more ordinary, not more spectacular. If anything, it's an internal link turned to the affirmative alternative, which attempts to place sexuality into the debate, telling everybody what the black community needs to do with their assholes. The next external impact is the status quo. The external impact is status quo refuse of universality to violate black women. This is we need to the politics of respectability is key to transgressing not only intra-community violence but inter-community violence in the way politics of respectability works by operating black women as dirty, dangerous, and deviant. That's Durham et al. 13. This framework involves coming out with the language about the penis sex and the heteropatriarchal respectability politics forecloses such discussion of respectability politics and plays a tactics balance control of repression towards black women and inscribing the white capitalist heteropatriarchy. Black and brown bodies have contributed trying to desires and neurotic success. Pathology is limited to how black body sexuality is intellectual, popular culture, and academic discourse. Continuing investment in the freakish bodies of color can be commodified given recent hating of Sakia Gunn and C.C. McDonald. The ability to embrace culture trans-identified by gender non-conforming women suggest that will limits on breast fluidity and sexuality, respectability, public sports, mitigating radical potential of these alternatives. Also, all answered question evidence here. This evidence isn't even locally applicable to the one who sees describing it within Western humanism rights based on the framework reproduces hierarchy by relying on the liberal notion of individuals, and the alternative has no mechanism to resolve these issues. The act is not a politic disability. Our goal is not to repair the images of women, but to destroy the disciplinary governmentality and respectability politics. Affirming democracy means giving women black the ability to disappear from the British society. The alternative beyond commerce is far too limited in scope to describe the ranging effects of governmentality. The interpersonal norms, not only within the academy, but the institution distributed throughout society's whole inability to address the everyday register of respectability politics of government mentality makes their alternative feel go to the criticism proper. I'm going to read first. That says Nash and focus on the alternative context is insufficient. Even if they want to focus on anality is good, Nash says it's not only the focus on understanding how blindness is weird, but how pornography operates. As Nash and 14 through the use of archive of contemporary black porn, research articulated representation black anality might claim is not black anuses are the only ones represented in pornographic screen. Norris Mike doesn't announcing how black anuses are represented in other anuses of pornographic screen. My engages a peer theory which has the very ways emphasize the fairness of blindness. I situate the appropriate graphic representation of black anality alongside the variable industry and the heterosexual anal pedagogy. I review that the discursive representation of regimes surrounding heterosexual and institutional includes sex. The alternative doesn't sell the pleasure parts of the one you see. They can see that not all people like their sexuality. The penis, even though we all have an anus, focusing on difference is important because there's difference in the way we have experience and like to experience sexuality, which is what the Nash evidence says. There's difference in the way we like to experience sexuality, which means it is important to focus on difference, but difference can only come after we escape the politics of respectability, or else within the black community, that's the status quo. We all have anuses in the status quo, but our argument is that the sexuality is still rendered illicit because we define because the politics of respectability exists, which reason why the permutation not only has solvency, but we have net benefit to the permutation of destroying the politics of respectability. They say non all exclusive parts of the alternative, the one only severs out of the rejection parts and want to see if we prove that one is productive given the way the text is written too. We are not moving target. Our argument is everyone has relation to animality and everyone. 3, if we win our sequencing question, challenge respectability politics, and we create a space for non-reproductivity of queer bodies post the 1AC. It's a question of your methodology is mutually exclusive, not a question of taking your methodology, rather saying that illicit eroticism is definitely a way of affirming black anuses. But our argument is that the only way to do that is to have a proper structural analysis. You don't have a proper structural analysis. You don't see the way the black mother has to produce the black man to be raped. Our argument isn't a sequencing question. Isn't black feminists have more importance, but rather we need to focus on the way that the process of accumulation happens. They say the permutation is unconsensual. I just answered about the method question, but they say that the anuses are important because it focuses on the way that blackness accumulates and becomes seen as trash. Argument is that who produces the trash to be accumulated. We have to first stop the reproductivity of the black. We have to first escape the black matrix and get outside of the reproductivity of the black woman before we're ever able to see the black cyborg, which means transcend beyond humanism, or realize that we need multiplicities and differences in the way that we not only engage sexuality but refuse to demonize revolutionaries that have come before us.
Okay, we have 7. Yeah, so can you give me the one you see? It's somewhere on.
Oh,
Sure, can I have some of this juice?
yeah.
The order is block order. The order is block order. I feel the street. She's basically looking at the street.
All right, shh.
You guys ready? The one I see is an affirmation of white supremacist fiction's notion of racial gender dystonia. The affirmation of black prostitutes one that structurally reifies civil society structure, pure cultural curiosity, scientific exploration of the prostitute and black women relaunch our national evidence in the case of Sarah Barber's body function as a master text allowed European audience to cast that collect the gates in which to which the otherwise match difference is justified. The prostitute exported things like civilization, which is the one I see is the black Venus narrative that reaffirms black women's bodies with black women's bodies with sexual deviances and moral pathology, which internally turns there into black disadvantage because it is the same inherent, the same humanist European analytical framework for imagined serial gear, i.e., was turning primitive, i.e., the idea that Sarah Bauman's ass was different, the idea that her anus signifies something different in the social form of pathology from European body to create a fundamental justification for the anti-black violence, anti-black gender, the violence of the affirmative, which means that only starting from the position of black analysis and recognize the sameness between bodies able to resolve the impacts of anti-blackness out. Additionally, they're considering our humanism like argument was turned. The affirmative is also a disadvantage to the permutation of black nature attaches to blackness and notions of reproduction through for close and focusing on the vagina. Don't forget the one I see we so quickly to focus on reproduction as tied to notions of the vagina because it is better as black people to see the non-value to black society. The everything black women produces is criminalized and they criminalize it used by civil society, which at its foundation no structure is a source of value, even if it is merely attached to civil society. One of your national evidence flows negative because she indicates flows negative because she indicates that only through starting from the black anesthesia, black bottom are we able to do things like resolve the stigmas around the prostitute and she given. You can see our national evidence indicates the pathologization of the gay male, the pathologization of anal sex created the foundation for the pathologization of the prostitution and the prostitute through things like the construction of AIDS. Academic our national evidence indicates that gay men and prostitute users imagine to spread their legs with their unquenchable appetite for destruction at the scene of being open to penetration is culturally and ideologically equated with female powerlessness and the willingness to abdicate power, which is the only alternative able to resolve things like the stigmatization and criminality of the prostitute, but also resolve larger structural notions of things like notions of consent that are disarticulated at the level of the anus and at the level of the anus. I'll do the perm debate here because I think that they are not answering that they don't get a permutation because this is a method debate, which means that you should be able to test the nuances of the the affirmative. The one I see starts from the position of the vagina. The one I see starts from the position of the anus, which are two fundamentally structural different starting points which should be evaluated as such. Our permutations make debate insular because they provides an effective platform to test the method of the one I see. Now, additionally, the accuracy to our Schaefer evidence, which is an independent diss add to the permutation, but also internal link towards the affirmative, which is an external impact to the criticism because Schaefer evidence indicates that the affirmative attaches themselves to the institutional norms of the debate community writ large, which makes us a fungible resource to be exploited for on behalf of institutional ends. Our Schaefer evidence indicates that this prevents the inability to develop things like self-love, which is a product of illicit eroticism, which means that they can reevaluate blackness and they can't revalue blackness and create these sideboards because they will always lock blackness into the structural position of fungibility, which impact turns the affirmative. Now, additionally, the impact turns the structurally and turn the affirmative. Now, additionally, the permutation would be severance because of blackness and the lack of capacity to reach things like humanity, and therefore gender determination suspends it creates a condition for susceptibility of things like anal rape. Our mass evidence indicates that the anus should become the text par excellence, the thing that we look at to determine and evaluate and theorize about structures of anti-blackness and gender deviations, because she indicates that starting from the anus, we're allowed to do one of two things. The first, she indicates that we are able to create a new theory of black power that is able to sustain subordination and quotidian spectacular acts of violence, but also the bottom acts as a site of black pain and black pleasure, which resolves the materialism impact, because they're conceding that we're still able to do things like illicit eroticism without tying into notions of beauty or notions of the vagina, which means that this has fundamentally been a floating big argument since the block, which means that we resolve a lot of the case debate, which means that we want to present brist of a link argument that is enough to vote negative because the alternative is functionally better than the affirmative. Now, our mass evidence continues that the black female body should be used as a pedagogical step par excellence to imagine, to expose the lie of the massive difference through inserting our form of pedagogical practice that recognizes the fundamental sameness of all bodies. She indicates that the black female body could be the quintessential anus, and that if all anuses look alike, revealing the impossibility of black exteriority, then we're able to disrupt the racial signifiers that structurally places the black body into the position. Now, 2 mass evidence indicates that we are also able to resolve these questions of pleasure and the reproductivity, because we are able to analyze notions of reproductivity without tying it to notions of the vagina. Now, the one that sees affirmation of beauty is not politics of ugly. That young evidence indicates that erotic power of black women gained is from an affirmation of beauty, particularly within things like the pornographic industry, which forecloses radical potential because it's constructed through a white aesthetic that stigmatizes bodies marked as inherently ugly, which is used as a tool against the black community to reinforce marginalization. Our Menges evidence indicates that we need to start from politics of ugly to challenge how ugly is used to pathologize blackness with impact terms. Then roll the ballot argument, which means that we are the only one to meet. Our argument is that we need to start from the place of absolute fleshly theory election, which is only the anus, given that the vagina is folded back into larger structural notions of humanism, but they don't have any offense against the alternative, which means if when the alternative is not better than the other, that is enough to go affirmative, because our argument is that the alternative is the only way to resolve the impact.
Oh shit! Come on!
Stop.
Stop. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
completely not completely.
I have 26 seconds or no?
Yeah, did you have prop time to get some weird stuff?
I guess you could put it all. I guess you could put it all on one page. I'm gonna say some case things there, but it just might be structurally easier.
Big major concession of the 1 hour reading of the national anthem. The alternative is plan possibly to pass your vote on the head because the alternative vote affirmative because negatives and enacting respectability colleagues because they don't have a single piece of evidence or articulation why reproductivity is necessarily bad. Only the anality is uniquely good. National affirmative permutation was wrong. All of the links I will read articulate part of the national anthem. New Q read it in the 1 hour contest, but you should have answered. It says that though she uses her iPad, the contemporary black pornography to explore representation of black and her claim is not that black anuses are the only ones represented in the pornography. She goes on to talk about how she engages queer theory and how that's important to understand the queerness of blackness is why the concession of the Durham efforts successfully are prerequisite sequence in question 2, creating a space in order to discuss and act black and you know what I'm saying? We are prerequisite to create a space for the alternative to happen with you, develop to the permutation you should answer this argument. We are the excess, we are the filth and toxicity of conceded the reproductive analysis in the day the black woman reproduced death, which means we have an internal link to the national the red and the line see that the concession of Durham happens to be these respectability policies and negative permutation you have also conceded that it is bad to start from the point that indices because it begs the question of who has produced the people with the indices that we have conceded on one argument is that everyone has even if your argument is true that everyone has a relationship to anality, everyone does also have a relationship to reproductivity and needs to be the black nations now the frame of access and black reproductivity, which is what national science is talking about is why I'm going to go for truffle butter is good. This is the blurring of sexuality, i.e. the blurring of anality and black reproductivity, which is articulation of the permutation there are non-mutually exclusive parts of the alternative, i.e. you have a text that says reject the affirmative and engage in black animality. We said that you can engage in that kind of theoretic analysis and still affirm things like the illicit eroticism. The young evidence specifically says that illicit eroticism is a very good theory and strategy for understanding the historical representation of black bodies have been forbidden their sexual desires and fantasies and practices, and it's not mutually exclusive with how they understand sexuality. Even if there's a 1% risk that they are able to create some kind of pleasure and materiality, they exclude the pleasure and materiality that is disavowed by the focus on the vagina, which is why look, alternative is good. Everything they said is good. does not disprove the thesis of the affirmative. Even if they can create pleasure, desire, materiality, does not mean the 1AC cannot also do those things, which means you fucking still vote out. Okay. They try and extend a piece of national priority extended above. If it's true that Sarah Berman has the massive signifier of scripts of gender, and that's a link argument going for the national because she said you have to focus on the queer body and how gender is articulated, which is why we read this card in the one area, and they say it's a question of the question. They say it's a question of the anus. They say it's a question of the anus is a different starting point. It's not different in the context of the national because we read in the one area. She says it's key to understanding the type of violence that operates on you. We'll extend the James here to evidence that says we have to have a linguistic and material understanding of violence operates, not just the way that blackness is consumed or reproduced via the anus, which all the context of your evidence. You say everything is blackness, but I've already impacted your national is the permutation. So all of the residual link arguments, even if it's a method that you have to prove, the methods are incompatible, i.e. that an affirmation of black animality trades off of the affirmation of black reproductivity. You have very little threshold for this because the platform to test the look. They have to prove that we can't do what the 1AC did, not that just what the alternative did was good also. They extended the shape for evidence by institutional norms of debate. They've conceded that the 1AC creates a space to challenge post-structurality politics, which is also bi-directional because you don't have isolated with norms of debate that we participate in any. The 1AC is not an affirmation of self-love, rather than the 2AC's articulation about how we are a politics of the ugly, which is all the analysis about the cyber, the permutation, the severance, only the system of severance of text, but you can consider that's good, it's good for predictable accuracy, given the way the text is when you say it's a severance, also because of gender determination. If we win, the Nash is focusing on the context of queer saying how gender operates, and we win arguments on how governmentality, how gender is predicated, even if it's fictitious and a white imaginary, it has real material implications to understand how politics respectively operates and how we self-discipline ourselves, which means we get some inroad. They don't have an external impact with permutation can result in evidence that he says the top piece of evidence and national fatigue says about prostitution. The only piece of evidence in the context of prostitution just says it's an understanding how the public sphere has viewed the link of homosexuality and prostitution analogous is not sufficient to solve the affirmative. You should also extend the Durham evidence at the bottom of the floor because it says that understanding the ways that, and it gives a contextualization of how we understand animality because it understands how trans black women create agency through gender and sexuality. Look, even if these are fictitious concepts, these are appropriate tropes to mobilize to create material betterment. The Bystrom evidence that they read is remotely applicable to the way it's about describing the way Western human rights like you extend the piece of cyber government evidence that we read black women have to birth the people who have access. It's important that we look at and look at the textures and the differences about totality operate, even if it's important to focus on how we let's say because we have a relationship reproductively refusal to internalize the structure given civil society means black women don't have to be dirty, dangerous, deviant because of the Luzon evidence of the black side of we'll see world post-humanism, a piece of revolution that goes beyond yourself and transcends time and space. You advocate a future without connectivity to the past with the old, feelings of the sacrification of black women. We have to understand the revolution from Sada to Trayvon is intrinsically like this is a net benefit of permutation because our affirmative can create new signs of civil society that prevents the commodification with the Bystrom evidence is talking about, which means that we not only solve the affirmative, but we solve all of the impacts of the alternative. Any risk of permutation will be able to resolve the links of the criticism, either things about how gender operationalized or how there's a different distinct trade-off with the starting point. It means you can vote for the permutation, right? If they're true about the importance of understanding black anality, that does not disprove the importance of understanding black reproductivity. What are you saying?
Black self-love is not a trade-off.
Our argument is contextualizing the piece of evidence about how black is beautiful. There's not a trade-off, right? We can create ourselves as the collective, beautiful, divine, but first we have to understand the politics of ugly, right? The excessive waste of reproductivity, how black women reproduce death.
Is it unmuted now? Okay, so I'm super anxious all the time, which is like real cray, but I forgot to thank one of the most important people in the world. And I told her anyways, and she's like, it's not fine, but I want this memorialized because I know this is going to be on some internet database, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Q is amazing. She's coming for that ass. She's a great debater. She's a great human being. And I would not be able to get where I am without her. I'm not just talking about first round debate, all that cool shit, but as a human being, she has made me better. I love her. She stepped my style game up, my music game up, and she's awesome. And honestly, y'all better watch out. Whoever she debates with, she's going to be fantastic. Q, I love you. Watch this later. Badass bitch.
Round of applause for our finalists. I mean, we can't say this enough, but congratulations to both teams for making it to the finals of SETA National Championships. Advancing and being the champions on a 6-3 decision is the negative from For the University of Kansas, HR. And the national champions back-to-back from Towson. I don't know if that's it's that.
I'll go first. Hi, Seth. I vote on the permutation. I think that the 1AR Nash evidence, that's a piece of evidence on this question of whether or not Nash sort of precludes the forms of discussion that the app is having. I think it indicates the anus can be a starting point, but not the starting point. This being true, the debate comes down to whether the alt is necessary and sufficient to resolve the aff and vice versa. I don't think there's a strong enough link to the use of the vagina by the end of the debate to preclude the 1AC performance. I think the Durham evidence is excellent on this question of respectability politics and allowing the discussion of illicit eroticism, and it resolves the way that Black bodies sort of orient towards the world in the context of sexuality. I don't think that Nash forecloses the reproductivity. While I think that Durham and the James evidence are pretty good, that focus on the Black vagina is good and doesn't preclude the discussion of the anus. I think that the top of the 2AR is right. He's got a lot of reasons why anality is good, but I don't have a lot of reasons by the end of the debate after going through the evidence and everything as to why the app is necessarily problematic. I think that for me at least, a trade-off argument would be helpful in the end, that saying that their focus on the Black vagina trades off and sort of starts to preclude the discussion of the anus. I think that not being there makes it hard for you to overcome sort of the ability of the permutation to access both of those discussions.
I was the next person. I was the next person who said, I agree in some significant places where Will said, I think a trade-off argument would have been definitely helpful for me. And that is mostly just because even if it in some way, I think floated around there in some capacities, I think just a direct confrontation with the ways by which they have argued that you don't have any reasons why. Just a clear, crisp, here's a list if you didn't catch it, 4 reasons why the vagina is necessarily problematic to start off with would have been helpful. I agree with everything said about the Durham evidence. The 2 places where I kind of stand out and am able to latch on to the app a little bit better in the context of the perm are with these illicit eroticism arguments, in particular the pleasure impact that is being kind of flagged in the 1AR and bleeds through with conversations about illicit eroticism in the 2AR. Those stand out to me because it accounts for bodies that prefer more or less a one-word relationship with the anus, if you will. And so while the act does not necessarily speak to male rape in the way that kind of configures and plays out, I'm convinced by the discussion of the black vagina's capacity to produce the black male in a world of anti-black violence and death, thus that needs to be a prerequisite. I think we have something that has been flagged as a prerequisite and something that is a theoretical assumption that we have to take before we take a more material one to look at the ways in which the black vagina or the anus kind of play out as sites of resistance. And so in that world, I just kind of see that prerequisite as being at the very least an epistemological change to how I should understand what happens in the face or in the context of deviance. The Nash evidence, ironically, from the negative team that uses the Sarah Bartman example actually kind of solidifies my decision for me because the card speaks to abnormal genitalia in addition to the buttocks in that region being a place and a site of the white gaze. So in that world, when I look at and understand deviance, I do think that the permutation has the capacity to at least not preclude a conversation about those two things, which is where I think that trade-off argument would have made the most sense if you were able to kind of connect those discussions for me and make a little more sense. My decision was very difficult to come to, and I kind of came to it when I did because I was like, I'm killing myself right now, and it's not gonna get no better unless I just go ahead and sign the paper. So really, I appreciate just being a part of the experience. Thank you.
I also sat. I do think the affirmative implementation argument. I think the Durham evidence is pretty good about the ways that politics respectability must be transgressed before a clear stances can be affirmed or heteronormative kind of forces can be confronted. I think that the illicit eroticism argument, like Tori said, offers black women more marginalized survival skills to challenge and transgress those politics respectability. I don't really have too much pushback against why the AF's method of non-normative sexuality is not true or is bad. I'm also not sure at the end of the debate why illicit eroticism doesn't foreclose evaluating blackness from the position of the anus, because the AF's been pretty consistent throughout the debate in my mind that the argument that embracing a non-normative sexuality may not be from the vagina, but that's just a method necessary to allow for different types of pleasure and individuals seek their own type of subjectivity. I don't think that there's really a link argument to this component of that, which I think gives them kind of an internal link to this Durham sequencing argument. I think an argument that also isn't really answered in the 2NR is that there's already a relationship to reproductivity that everyone has because women are the ones who produce the toxic, the trash, the things to be accumulated, meaning that sorting part is sort of necessary. So we came from a woman, we get our game from a woman, so we do all this bad stuff. And I think that's where Nash evidence kind of index there. Well, I think that the 2NC Nash evidence is very good about the ways that black femininity can be addressed through the starting point of black anus. I kind of agree with what Tori said and kind of Janice's characterization that there's not really an explicit claim that starting point of reproductivity is bad or any reason why the app itself is not good or is ineffective. Which means I kind of err app on the sequencing question. I was more persuaded by the way that all that stuff above. I look at your Schaefer evidence, but I think that kind of begs the question of what an institution is. And my reading is like it's been clinging to the humanism or trying to use that kind of to flip itself. But I think their James evidence is really good. That starting from a position of black matrix or the vagina is necessary to address racial rape, addressing structural supremacy. And that there's also a structural supremacy that males have over black female. That starting point is kind of what needs to happen to flip that dynamic. But also addresses how black men have also been exploited and raped by instances of whiteness. I think that creates room necessary to confront humanism, which gets some like a sequencing argument to the permutation and all the illicit eroticism stuff, all the respectability stuff I've talked about are reasons why I think the permutation sort of encompasses the best starting point without really any dissonance to reproductivity, etc. This was also a very hard decision for me to make. I thought this was a really good debate.
Unsurprisingly, I didn't quite find a use for the vagina in this debate. And I say that I think the 2AR kind of makes a strategic miscalculation in saying that there's no offense coming from the negative and that they don't have a reason why reproductivity is bad. I thought they had kind of a few arguments as to why starting from the vagina would be bad. The first is the reaffirmation of difference that the vagina was used as a site of difference in order to justify colonial exploitation, which was the first link from the 1NC. The second is that your turn towards the vagina is an attempt to seek out humanity and affirmation through productivity and finding value where there is no value. And then third is the kind of Black is beautiful, which you kind of locate in the Black woman, where Black anger is more of a site of abjection.
No, sorry. Okay.
I thought that the 2AR admits that that reality kind of does everything that the act does. And so in that world, it is an example of the affirmatives. Eroticism. It accesses that internal link, which is Black respectability politics and all of that. I do think that the truancy makes the argument that you don't get affirmation because this is a method debate. I don't necessarily agree with that, but he says that in truancy it extends in the 2AR. There's no answer to that in 1AR or the 2AR. And so I do think it's a question of either or in this debate. And there's no offense on the anus.
Do you think, sorry, great question. This question about the link of appropriation of the vagina being like some Western white shit. Do you think the reading of the one Nash Evans, which is like her understanding of queerness, is linked to sexuality? So in the articulation that I got from Kevin was like, it's about how gender is like a construct that's imposed upon the body, which is a hot penis destruction. Why does that not impact her into their understanding of Nash? She's like, you need to understand these signifiers of like queerness and gender. Why is that not a thing?
I think you just combine two arguments, but the first one about the human value, the human value part was a separate argument about productivity and productivity that you're seeking for through the Black vagina. That's one. Then separately is the way in which the vagina and the difference therein was used to justify colonialism. That difference, I'm not certain, is.
Are you not persuaded by governmentality, which is like that difference is material and important, or are you not persuaded? I'm trying to find, because I feel like I've answered the question and maybe just not persuasively or offensively about it, so I'm trying to find a way to answer it. Because the answer to this link argument I thought was one, those signifiers of whiteness or of colonialism are materially important for understanding respectability politics and things like queerness. And then two, the one I reads this card that nationally we have to attune ourselves to queerness, which is the signifier that is implicit in gender. Like that's what their evidence is talking about.
No, I think that the negatives argument about, I think you're both agreeing that we need some kind of queerness and that you're both kind of that. The question about the anus as a starting point versus the vagina is kind of, their argument is just we kind of all have one, and it makes it easier to get rid of the difference that is articulated through the vagina.
Yeah, okay, no, that's totally fair. My question is a little bit more specific. In that context, I guess, how do you evaluate the dissent difference? It's like you need to evaluate difference because people like sex in different ways. Some people don't like it in the anus, some people do like it in the anus, some people don't like to have sex. Sometimes it's just like one extra on a pole. That articulating it via the anus articulates one form of sexuality. Our argument is that we shouldn't place sexuality on gender, but rather allow for people to self-create sexuality. Obviously, we all like sex in different ways. So the differentiality argument either is an internal link to one static view of blackness or two is makes the affirmative a better solvency mechanism because it is a question of starting point. I agree, anus and vagina, but I think that it's not a question of, it's a starting point of how we get there. I think if you say the colonial subject had a vagina and I was fucked up too,
that's kind of, when I heard that, I thought that was kind of weird, but I'm not sure that everyone likes having sex through their vagina or what.
No, I agree. That's like non-consensual part. It's like non-consensually civil society defines sex as in good, as in heteronormative sex. We think we should break down that stigma and create new signifiers outside of the ones given to us. It's not vagina first, but rather through understanding that reproductivity is the way that civil society defines itself, we can transcend to a new humanism where it doesn't rely on us saying, how do you like to get fucked?
Yeah, I think we can do that through the anus without trying to affirm the humanity of reproduction.
So basically, I voted on the, I don't think that you win the permutation because I think that they're winning in humanism. This adds to the permutation as well as the Schaefer evidence. And so essentially, I give them access to the, even if I don't give them the alt debate, right? I still give them access that this adds to the app, which means that I believe that they become the better starting point in which they solve for all of the impacts of the whole thing.
What's the articulation for the next humanism? What's humanist about the one you see?
Well, he indicates in the 2 right, that you focus on reproductive, which means that the black is compartmentalized, which is an attachment to the way in which civil society operates, right? And that's his articulation in the 2.
Why doesn't the cyborg, which is about the collective body, combined with the analysis that I'm like fairly certain, and I could be just like totally trolling, that I say that there's a relationship, everyone has a relationship to reproductivity. Even if it's true, everyone has an anus, everyone has a relationship with reproductivity. It's a question of who the fuck birthed all of the anuses? Why isn't that argument an answer to humanism?
No, I think they win that the anal comes first before the vagina.
Right. Why does that disprove the question of relationality and reproductivity? I understand they win a starting point question. You said they win a link to humanism.
They win humanism as a dissension permutation, which I don't believe you get access.
Do you not think that the fundamental claim that we're making that everyone has relationship to reproductivity is true?
Maybe, maybe not. I don't think the way in which you articulate it in this particular debate round, I don't think that it's fleshed out enough for me in terms of everybody having access to reproductivity.
No, not access. Like everyone's related to the position of reproductivity. Like they just had to come from somewhere. It's like the argument that I'm going for the 2 to answer the humanism link. So what do you think is a better answer?
I'm not sure. I think that you would just have to run the permutation debate for me, and prove that why you become a better sequencing to the negative. Because right now, the way in which I evaluate the debate in terms of permutation. And for me, I just don't believe that you are the sequencing to the negative side. I don't think you win the sequencing argument, which makes it more difficult for me.
I don't understand how those things are linked, but I'll tell you that.
Wait, if the sequencing, I mean, this is not really a pressure. It's a sequencing question, so you're just not sure why. Okay.
Like if you win, in my world, if you win that you become, right, the prerequisite, right, to the articulation of the neg, right, that means you win the permutation, which means I hold half.
No, completely. So do you think, when you say anus is for vagina, do you think that the structural analysis is like, yes, we agree that maybe anus should be the future focus, but to connect the past to the present to the future, we have to realize that we all came from vaginas. We don't have to relate to the vaginas in the future, in future communities, which is why we should create communities that way, which is like, she's trying to say when she says like, we all have a relationship to it. Is that just like not a good sequencing argument in your mind, or?
I think it needs to be fleshed out more.
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you.
I think I could try and answer the question that you just asked. I think that the better way might be to answer that question is that we are a separation of like the idea of reproductivity, that vaginas are only for things like reproduction. So we don't affirm the idea that vaginas are humans in the sense that they can only be used for reproduction, but the affirmation of sexuality, and that we can affirm sites like the vagina for things only for pleasure, not for things like reproductivity. We can say no to sort of the reproduction of civil society. And I think that is what the app is made to do, but I don't think that that's how it's being executed. I think in this way it becomes more of a sort of execution spin control rather than you don't have the tools to make these arguments. I just don't think that you're making these arguments. I think that that's sort of the separation of things from, instead of just saying we affirm the side, or that reproductivity is something that is important, that it can be sort of like antithetical to that in order to break down things like civil society. I do agree to an extent about the sort of way where the sort of I think that would be a better answer for the humanism for me. I think that it's not, I think it needs to be explained. It's sort of like a root cause versus like a proximate causing. Like you say that everyone comes from vaginas, everyone has a relationship with vagina. That doesn't mean you have to affirm vagina as the way for the future. Like you just said, like we don't have to do that in the future. Like that's their argument, is that we shouldn't then affirm it from that site. We should affirm it from a different site, and that is something that's antithetical to reproduction because the anus is not seen as something that is a productive site.
Yeah, but critical honesty says affirm vaginas.
What?
We say that the structural analysis positions vaginas as the descriptive force for civil society. That descriptive force is fucked up. We no longer want to use that. We say that illicit eroticism maneuvers a way in which we no longer have to predicate sexuality as in using vagina. That's our entire argument. That's why trans women are excluded in the status quo. Because we say you're not a real woman because you don't have a vagina. We think that's fucked up. That's the end.
It's just execution errors. Is that it?
What?
Is it? It's just mostly execution errors.
I think it's mostly execution, but like I've seen you read this app before. I know that the tricks that exist. I just don't think that the things that you're saying exist in the ones you're not things that are executed in the way that they should be in order to sort of create the reason why, or in order to. I feel like I have those questions at the end, and I know what the answers could be, but not what the answers the answers that are being given.
And then one area you don't get, like, it's probably fucked up to ask people what their genitalia is based upon like their physical features.
I don't think that that's something that is as present in the 2AR, even if that card is in the one hand.
Good. You ready? Okay. Yeah, I don't disagree with a lot of what they've said. I thought the 2AR was a little bit too defensive on the conceding how much of the alternative solved a good portion of the app in terms of the pleasure and the illicit eroticism, which I think is internally to a lot of the respectability politics argument. I disagree that the negative with y'all, that the negative doesn't have reasons why not to focus on the vagina or reproductive politics. I think both the European gay Sarah Bartman argument is a disadvantage to that focus. It may be possible for you to disassociate your app from that vagina as starting point, but I don't think you do that in the debate. I think you are conceding that sort of spin or attachment from them in a way that sets the anality as the sort of in opposition to the vagina or reproductive politics as a starting point. So I think both the European gays disad and the beauty argument are both disads to the permutation for me. I also think there are other arguments about the permutation. I am with Rashad to an extent on, I think negative is making a strong push on whether or not permutations should exist in the way that they typically exist in debates and these method debates. I don't know that it's strong enough in the 2NR for me to absolutely not think about the permutation, but it certainly makes me suspicious of the way that the permutation functions to paper over important structural differences or nuances between the apps. Should I imagine that if we've agreed in this debate that the vagina is the starting point, should I then allow the 2AC to kind of shift that to do away with this competition between anality, et cetera? I thought the other arguments in the 2AR focus a lot on whether it is mutually exclusive or the trade-off argument. And I thought I was persuaded by the kind of net beneficiality of the anality is sufficient to solve the app. And I think there are disads to including the app itself. I also think the Schaefer evidence needs to be debated. I think their argument there is just sort of the function of the permutation as an attachment to institutions, debate institution itself in a way that denies self-love. Whether that argument is awesome or not is just a technical error of whether it's debated in the debate. So I don't think the permutation can access the solvency of the app in the way that you would need it to. I think that I struggled the most with thinking through what is positive or necessary about reproductivity in terms of we all have a relationship to reproductivity, et cetera. And I just think that one, it needs to be teased out more sort of how does that implicate these other things? How does it weigh against the risk entailed in their Nash argument about Sarah Bartman and European gays? How do we set that against the necessity for your reproductive focus in the context of, I think the anality is sufficient to address the vast majority of the app. I'm just not sure at the end of the day what the terminal implication there is. I think the 1AR Nash evidence is not quite as good as you need it to be. I think it is her reading that. She seems to be saying that it's not simply about black anus, but about other anus as well in pornography. I don't really think it's much broader than that in the context of gender exclusivity, et cetera. Even if it is, I think that it would at best justify we don't necessarily need to exclusively focus on anality, but their alternative does. And I think they have disadds to your specific presentation of reproductive focus, the beauty argument. And I just think the Sarah Barton argument just isn't debated, that Nash evidence just isn't debated really in the 2AC or really answered really until the 2AR in a specific application of your arguments to it. And so technically I'm gonna lean neg there.
Do you think the articulation of the permutation is the truffle butter and the 2AR makes sense, given the way the Nash evidence is talking about how sexuality has to be understood as like way successful? What the internal link to why we focus on the anus is to understand Black sexuality as toxic, as waste, as the nasty shit. Do you think that is an argument that can be fleshed out earlier to get inroads to the permutation, or what it would look like?
How does that implicate the permutation?
Okay, so in my mind, how I understood the permutation in the context of truffle butter is like, even if we're starting from the vagina and then going into the anus, and, I'm sorry, everybody, just deal with it. Google truffle butter if you don't know what it is. I mean, prepare yourself, thank you. People on the video stream, prepare yourself, don't Google, don't do this at home. Even if you're going from one to the other, there's that what he says in cross-links where he's like, "Ew, I didn't like that." That's the thing to which she's talking about, right? That ickiness, that excessive waste toxicity, which is Black sexuality. You think if I said this, like I had this aha moment after a while. That's why I said that. If this is an argument fleshed out earlier, does this make sense in the context of what Nash is talking about the internal link as to why focusing on the anus is good?
I guess I'm still not finding overwhelming reasons to include the F. So we're struggling. We're not on the same page here.
If we meet the reasons why focusing on the anus is good, are those reasons too?
I don't think you preclude a focus on the anus. I think an inclusion of the AF is that there are disadvantages to that. Right? This is not a mutual exclusivity. While I think it would be helpful if the neg had a trade-off argument, I don't think they need one. I think if the alt solves the AF, there are disadds to the AF. Even if the AF is not incompatible with that, the inclusion of the alt doesn't resolve those disadds to it because they are disadds to the way the 1AC is presented and the particular ways that the 1AC ties itself to.
Okay, last question, sorry. Do you think this answer, get a perm method debate kind of shit, do you think that's just answered by if the alternative can be spun, how I saw it was if the alternative is plan fluff, i.e. there's no trade-off disadvantage, then that justifies or begs the question of the link or mutual exclusivity. If there is no trade-off disadvantage, then you can have a permutation theoretically.
Yeah, in general, I'm unlikely to say no permutations, this is a method debate. I do think that there should be I'm with you on the neg needs a reason why the app is bad. I thought they had reasons why the app is bad in this debate.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the latter part of Sarah's decision really encapsulates what sort of tipped me. I do think that ultimately the negative points is a risk that the inclusion of the affirmative has some disad to it that the alternative is able to resolve. I really agree that the 2AR and in general a lot of the app strategy I just think is way too defensive. It seems rhetorically the moments where you slow down and draw connections and the 2AR are ones that are fundamentally the alternative is also great. I sort of generally think that I think that you should be generating a bit more than that, especially because I think the 2NR is doing a pretty good job at interacting with your evidence in a way that sets up a large amount of solvency for illicit eroticism by way of finality. I think that also I kind of more so than Sarah think that y'all aren't getting enough done on winning in permutation, and this might be because I sort of, unlike Sarah, am more likely to think that in method debates the affirmative has to do a bit of work to fight that back, rather than just being if there's no trade-off, then a permutation is good. I think that their argument that notion of competition precludes effective testing of the nuances of the 1AC method is an argument that sort of needs a second level app response to that doesn't quite get accomplished by the end of the 2AR. And for what it's worth, I agree that I think the 2AR says this, that the Schaefer evidence isn't applied specifically. I think probably the application that they're going for might be sort of the 2AR callback to obviously this is a permutation. If there's no direct trade-off, then there's no mutual exclusivity. I think that they're trying to say that it's precisely that institutionalized model of competition is something that we should reject because that's too humanist or whatever. That precludes self-love.
Do you think, and obviously this needs to be said earlier on in the 2AC, fuck you, that's bidirectional.
Like, I don't know what about if it's the institutional model of competition, i.e. the question of permutation, begs the fuck why you're reading lists.
I think that a clearer just like you don't have uniqueness for that, or like you talked within speech times kind of argument would probably be sufficient to answer that argument back, which is why, I don't know, I was hesitant to give them that much credit for that argument because I think that truth level claim is fairly compelling, even if it's not technically established. Other than that, yeah, I think that there's just like, because there's not, I don't think there's much of a permutation there. I think that there's a slight risk of offense that is sufficient for me to make on.
Okay. As I go through this, I'll try not to do it so I pause for a second. Just trying to avoid some.
Can you talk a little bit louder?
Oh, yes, I paused for a second. I'm just trying to not repeat a lot of stuff people said, so I'm going to go through this. But I would agree with sort of the first framing that I think a lot of the act strategy is a little bit defensive in this debate. And then the other thing I would say is that some of it is also reactionary, especially in the 2ER, sort of the choice to just start on the K page and stuff like that. I think that you sort of lose sight of sort of important parts of the app, et cetera, and sort of just react to neg arguments and stuff in the 2NR, so you're not sort of closing the doors and having robust defenses of your app that I think we need in the end of the debate. I agree, especially mostly with Sarah's description of the sort of reproduction or the European gaze arguments. I think that they have one piece of Nash evidence that's pretty good that says that using sexual difference or black women's otherness is the quote in the card allows for European gaze to commodify black women's experience, allows for that anti-black balance to continue to face up reproduction. I think that there are impacts in this card that talk about how that allows for pathologization of black women's bodies, which continues to be a justification for sort of more of their alternative, et cetera. I don't think that your piece of Nash evidence is pretty good, and I agree with Sarah on that as well. I think it just says that there are other forms of anuses that are not just the black one that can be included, et cetera. And I think that the alternative explanation is sufficient to resolve a lot of your app. They even have arguments about why black women's anuses can sort of be the forefront of that. Et cetera, which is also sort of indicative of the quotes in their card, et cetera. I think that they at least have a sufficient explanation of how it's just sort of a floating peg that they pick up the vagina. There's ways that we can have this erotic relationship to the anus, et cetera. So I think if there's sort of a risk of competition, which I think is the best explained through the reproduction dissad, so that's sort of the reason that I would go at. I think that earlier in the debate, I think that there just needs, and I agree with other decisions that it's sort of a question of execution, but having a more robust defense of reproduction earlier would be helpful. And I think that the other thing, a large part of the 1AR strategy, I would say, is based off of sort of arguments about respectability politics, but those don't really make it a lot into the 2AR. There's not arguments where you really sit on them. I don't think that you sort of explain reasons why the alternative would not access those things, et cetera, but that seems to be a large focus earlier on in the debate. So executing that in a way that is clear to me and establishing those differences about why the alternative would not be able to access that, I think would be important. And I think that that is sort of resembles what I said earlier about sort of not starting on the app page, because the 2AC and the 1AR are a little bit more clear on that and establishing those lines of competition, et cetera. The permutation, I think it begs the question of whether there's sort of competition that's based on the dissad that I think they win. And then the other argument, which is sort of being asked during this decision and stuff, is the 1AR arguments about how you prefer sex, penetration, et cetera. And I think that their evidence is not just about the penetration of the anus, but their evidence is descriptive of what it means to be submissive, what it means to bottom. It's not just about the physical act of sex, but it's something that is much more than that, and allows them to have some of their access to the illicit eroticism, because it's not just that pure penetration, et cetera. But I agree that those arguments don't really dig into the 2AR either, but I think that their alternative evidence is much different on that question than the way that you've characterized it. So that's what I'll say.
Would a 2AR that started with like you start on how the colonial subject is robbed from like gets is bad because of the use of vagina.
Sorry, I also louder from the end. Yes.
Would a 2AR that started that was like we agree with the use of vagina bad. You said that the use of the vagina created the colonial subject in the way that it operates off of reproduction. We agree reproduction is bad. That's why we say the process of accumulation of bodies operates via reproduction. That's why Joy James says that we focus on racial capital, as in Black people become an accumulation, a place where we can gain things to kill off. So you reproduce trash, technically. Meets your alternative. That's why reproduction has to be the starting point. Argument that made more sense.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is just a question of that larger description that needs to be made in the debate a lot more. I think it's just some small blips in the 2AR, et cetera, and I don't think that it really fits the level of description that I need
to sort of hedge back against their arguments, et cetera. Yeah.
Woo!